Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
At Life's a Beach Realty, we're all about life on the beach. Stunning Panama City Beach and one of the most beautiful properties on the Gulf Coast, Shores of Panama. Radiant, elegant, and spectacular. Steps away from white sugar sand, every room overlooks the turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Come in for your tour today. Life's a Beach Realty is your gateway to Shores of Panama, the shores, and a whole lot more.
You're now in the Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television live here nightly on Bucks Report. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. And as we always start off the web, bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. Want to thank everybody out there, all you web heads, all you followers, likers, everybody that's a part of Facebook and, of course, Twitter and YouTube. Keep on liking and following and doing your due diligence to put this show out there. But with that being said, thanks a lot for the 3.3K views last night on a Monday night on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Join the 64,000 following we got here on Facebook. And like I said, on Tuesday night, we got the Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend himself, Mr. Al Keck. 40 years of sports broadcasting experience. WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28. Let's go ahead and get him on here on the evolution. And welcome to another edition. And boy, we got a lot of things to talk about tonight, Al.
We do. We do. Thank goodness. And we still got a long way to go before we can talk about anything on the field.
Absolutely. And we may take some phone calls too. Open phone line 727-266-5851. 727-266-5851. If you want to ask Al a question, you can do that. The only thing is you won't really be able to conversate with you. You can hear the phone call, so you're going to have to hang up and listen. But we'll take those phone calls, but want to get into what we kind of talked about last night. A computer simulation basically has the Bucks at 9-7. In fact, they're not associated with the NFL. And get this guy's name is Gary Gorski. I feel like we're on Saturday Night Live and it's the Bears fans there with a name like that. They did 100 simulations and they came out with the Bucks being 9-7. 32% of the time, the Bucks make the playoffs, 16%. And we'll get back to that. Let's hold off on the phone calls for right now. Let me go ahead and intro the show. You guys, I know you want to get in here. 16% winning the NFC South, and then 1 out of 100 winning a championship. Your thoughts?
I just don't see 9-7.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I think the bottom floor on this is 10-6, and I think, realistically, the Bucks are looking at an 11-5 season. They could go 13-3. I just don't see if Tom Brady. I mean, all we've heard is that the Patriots made the decision. They just didn't want Tom back, and that's really why he's not back in New England. It was a Patriots decision. But last year was a reason why they decided to make the change. He still throws for basically 4,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. If he does that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going at least 11-5. So a year ago, he didn't, and really for the last, outside of Rob Gronkowski, a couple of years ago, he hasn't had anywhere near the weapons he's going to have here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you have to be careful with is that very rarely does the winner of the offseason end up living up to the hype. And that could very well be the case this year. But they could go 10-6 and not live up to the hype. So I just don't understand 9-7. If it is a 9-7 season, I think 9-7 might make the playoffs, because then a lot of people in the NFC are going to have rough years, or years that they did not expect to have. But I just don't see 9-7.
And once again, this is from Wolverine Studios, who do sports simulations, and they're not affiliated with the NFL. They also have Brady with over 4,000 passing yards, only 28 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Remember, he had 24 and 8 interceptions. And it's interesting you should say that you believe that Brady actually would come in here and lead this team to the playoffs in 2019. They actually don't believe that. In fact, they believe that Brady will with the Bucs in 2019, because they did a switcheroo with Brady being the starter for the Bucs in 19, Winston being the starter for the Patriots. They only have them with a 1-game improvement, 8-8. With Winston, they have him at 8-8. Also, with the Patriots falling from 12-4. I don't know how this works out. I'm not really into this simulation thing. Blake Anthony, our guy of Sports Talk 49, he does a simulation for Madden. I feel like that's more accurate than this thing right here.
Well, let's remember, what is it that makes Tom Brady so great? Especially in recent years. In the last 5 years, 6 years. It's the little things that you don't see in the stat box. It's the little things that a lot of us don't really see on the field. It's a play here, it's a play there. It's just being smart. It's doing the right thing. It's throwing a ball away as opposed to trying to force something in. We've seen a lot of that in recent years. So a lot of the great things he does are things that aren't really noticeable, and you can't really quantify, and there really isn't a stat form. And that's what all these computer simulations are, numbers, throwing it into a computer and coming out with it. So all I know is that last year he threw for nearly 4,100 yards and had absolutely no talent whatsoever in catching the football. And ask yourself, could Julian Edelman be a top 2 receiver on this team? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Mm-mm. So, if Tom Brady can still throw for 4,100 yards and 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, with essentially, one of the worst receiving cores, probably one of the 5 worst receiving cores in pro football, then what can he do with one of the better receiving cores? And, I just don't see Tom Brady falling off a cliff like that. And because he's shown no signs of that. And so, let's not forget how smart he is. Let's not forget how bright he is. Let's not forget that even though there will not be workouts, OTAs, all these, little mini camps and, all this kind of stuff that he would normally have, he's going to have to make do with with a truncated mini camp or training camp. So, but the advantage in that is no one really knows what he's going to do. No one really knows what to expect. And I think that's going to be huge in that opener against the Saints, because the Bucs know what the Saints are going to do. The Bucs know what to expect from the Saints. You know, Drew Brees isn't going to do anything that much different than what they've ever seen before. But the Saints have no idea what Tom Brady's going to do with this lineup, especially the fact that hopefully everyone's healthy going into that season opening game. And if so, it's going to be fun to see what Tom Brady can do with all those weapons. But I just don't see 9-7.
I don't either. And I get the whole simulation thing where people are kind of taking into effect that he's going to have a new offense. He's going to have new weapons around him. So he has to basically pick up that chemistry. And because of COVID-19, that may stop that. But I kind of look at it from the standpoint of, like you said, the Saints don't know what this offense is going to be with Brady. And Brady, in my opinion, has never had these type of weapons. You can go all the way back to 2007, and our own Joshua Allen, who's one of the newest writers here, he compared those weapons with that undefeated team that eventually lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. And even those weapons aren't as good as what Tampa Bay holds. So to me, even though the Saints have a pretty good defense, I still think they're going to have their hands full, namely because Brady is going to have all these weapons. And then on top of it, they're really not going to know what to expect. Is this going to be a Bruce Arians offense? Is it going to be a mixture from what they did with the Patriots? Can Sean Payton and that defense handle it? We know that Breeze is going to be able to handle it to a certain degree.
Let's not forget, the Bucs are not intimidated by going into the Superdome in New Orleans. They do it every year, and they're very competitive. And the last time they went into New Orleans on season, for the season opener, they had Fitzmagic at quarterback, and they beat him 48-40. So, I just think it's going to be a great game. I really do. And I'm willing to put up with no sports and no football. I mean, if this is the first live sporting event I get to see, in early September, and we have to go the summer and, into September before seeing a football game, and I can see that game coming back, I'll sign up for that.
I'm absolutely signed up for that. We're off and running here on the evolution of sports talk television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck here. Let's go out to the web heads here. Let's not neglect them tonight. Get them in on the action. Keith says he's first. There you go. You're the first or last right there, Keith. You got H.R. Cooney says he's second. Nickelodeon Jackson, he says he's third. Kula says we're here. Good stuff. Will Man, hey Peter, hope all is well. Absolutely. Cornell, what's going on, buddy? Ben says Marco. I guess they're playing Marco Polo there in the text line. Yeah, Christopher, what's going on, buddy? Polo says Cornell. Good stuff. Gabe here, who's 17, Al, calling into the show, starting off early. Woo, web time, Tampa. Let's see here. Cornell says, what's going on? Everybody's saying what's going on. Buccaneers, let's go. Everybody pretty excited. Yaj says, let's go Bucks. Fire those cannons, baby. Love it. Yaj says, bring your passion. Absolutely. Big Al in the house. Let's go. Buccaneers, go Bucks. Yaj says, drop that knowledge, Al. Everybody really enjoys your knowledge, and that's why we get these guys on here. We don't get them just to look at you and smile. They actually have something to say. Now, some people will think that I'm a meat puppet and don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. But this guy right here, he definitely knows what he's talking about when he comes on the web. Let's go, says Joshua. 13-3 says Keith. Al is the GOAT. I like it. Christopher, the legend Al Keck in the house. Quick calling Johnny Dean. And we'll take some phone calls here in a moment, but we want to kind of set the show up, and then we'll get your thoughts. Yaj says 12-4. He is 7-1 away, 6-2 at home. Al Keck is the GOAT. Ali Keck.
Whoa. Look at the name there. That is the most incredible daughter-in-law on this planet.
Love it.
And you know what? They're very happy today because my son and his wife bought a house today in Chicago. So they're very happy.
Well, Al Keck is the GOAT, and just because it's family doesn't mean it's not true. And congratulations on the new home there in Illinois. 10-6 says Will Mann. Pete is also the GOAT. Appreciate it, Cornell. Appreciate that. I see 12-4 says Earl. Ricky says, I grew up on Al Keck, as did I. HR Wolverines who? Never heard of that trash. Ben Cornell Bonaparte, just a different kind of GOAT. Goodness gracious. Ali, I married his son, Lucky. Okay, good stuff. All in the family. Cornell says, I know. Yeah, the whole simulation is straight BS. Peter Big J here from Bucks fans only calling in, man. All right, just hold off on the call. I will definitely get you on here. We'll get your responses. He has Edelman, but he was doubled every play because he was the only weapon. Josh should know because he watched the Patriots quite a bit last year. There's Peter in the Geico commercial. Go Bucks. Yes, you can see them in the background there. Brady is the GOAT. Breeze is not. Christopher Chucky on TV tonight. Laugh out loud. Go Bucks says, of course. Russ says Sean Payton going to be crying when the Bucks are up by 3 touchdowns. Wow. That's right. We win often, says HR. Gabriel, Al, what was the most angry you got reporting a game? Did you ever get angry reporting a game or reporting on some type of subject?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've got 2 that immediately come to mind.
Okay.
One was that Monday night game where the Bucks had it all wrapped up against Indianapolis, and the Colts come storming back out of nowhere to win that game. And then there was the American League playoffs between the Rays and the Red Sox at Fenway, and the Bucks were only a few outs away from going on to the World Series and winning that American League pennant, only to have David Ortiz and company come storming back. And the reason why I got so upset at both was because at that point, as a sportscaster and doing the 11 o'clock news, you've got your show finished. You've got your highlights done. You've got it written the way you want. You've got all that stuff. And again, at Fenway, I'm doing my 11 o'clock sportscast from just outside Fenway Park, which there's still a bunch of Red Sox fans walking around and milling around. And they hear me and they see me, and then they really start giving me the business. So that really ticked me off. And then with the Bucks, again, they have played so well for 3 quarters and played so badly in that 4th quarter. Again, I had everything wrapped up. And then the only other time was when the Rays lost to Philadelphia, up in Philadelphia in the World Series, and that, in the game where Philadelphia wrapped it up. It was so cold and so wet and so miserable that all of us for Tampa Bay media, there were like 4 of us doing sportscasts from just outside the Rays dugout. And we're lined up and we're about 20 feet apart, and we're, just doing our thing. And a bunch of Philly fans are sticking around because the Phillies are celebrating, winning that championship. And even though it's a good 35, 45 minutes after the game, they're still sticking around to kind of celebrate. And I look over, and Rock Riley's trying to do his sportscast for Bay News 9. And there's a typical Philadelphia fan in the stand carrying up a Philly roll and throwing it at him. And it was one of the only times where I made contact with the guy. And I said, if you throw that at me, I'm coming. And he didn't, but I was ready. It was just enough was enough. So yes, I guess there were 3 times where I got angry when I was doing a reporting on a game. So
what's the moral of the story? Don't piss off Al Keck. That's it.
No, that's not it at all, because he very easily could have thrown. Now, here's the thing. How was I going to get to him? I was going to have to run down to a gate, run up through the gate, go through, I'd probably have to run 40 yards in order to get anywhere near him, so, but still, when you're in that situation, you get cranky like everybody else.
Well, absolutely. It's not a nice place. I mean, nothing against Philadelphia, but it was a miserable series. And then on top of it, I don't know what's worse, the weather or the fans. It certainly seems like it's the fans with all the stories that I've heard and everything that I've seen and heard from there. All right, let's go back out to the webheads here, read some comments, and then we'll hear from Levante David, who was on the Jim Rome show today on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. So, Ben Cornett, Peter, be respectful. Don't talk about your meat puppet. Okay, thanks a lot, Ben. What do you think about the new running back? Says Daniel Hammond. Everything you see with him, 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons from Vanderbilt. A lot of people say, well, he's from Vanderbilt, but you played top competition in the SEC, transferred from Illinois, and it certainly seems like he's going to be able to challenge Ronald Jones. Is that what you see in Keyshawn Vaughn out of Vanderbilt for them?
And I should have done a better job of this on draft night because I should have known. All you have to do is look at his stats. And if you can gain 1,000 yards a season in the SEC and you're from Vanderbilt, that's all you need to say. And, I think he's going to be an excellent addition to this offense. And, when you look at what he accomplished, look at Kamara of, the Saints. I don't think his stats were anywhere near, I could be wrong, but I don't think he had 2 years like that at Tennessee. And a lot of people really like Kamara coming out, including the Bucs. But now I like this kid, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And the other thing is, the very last pick is a kid that has a lot of speed. So he may be able to, to add some different things, with this team with having that kind of speed.
Yeah, and they called him a smaller David Johnson. That would be Calais, I believe it is. Calais?
Mm-hmm.
Calais. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, it looks like the running back situation has definitely improved. Of course, you won't know unless they put it on the field. But it's funny you should say Kamara because there have been some pundits out there that look at his tape and say, hey, maybe the Bucs got the next Alvin Kamara. Hopefully, because Kamara was drafted in the 3rd round. Vaughn is drafted in the 3rd round. We'll see what happens. We'll see if that works out for the Bucs in 2020. All right, let's go back out to the webheads here. Let's see. Guys on the TV says hi. All right, good stuff. Okay, let's go. Says Tim. Yeah, should we be worried about special teams? Is that one of the factors, Al, that you would worry about in 2020? Matt Gay missed a lot of field goals last year, missed some extra points, some field goals that could win games. Is that one of the weak points for the Bucs going into 2020, in your opinion?
Well, let me put it this way. If the season's going and the only thing we're really complaining about is special teams, I think that's pretty good. I will take that in a heartbeat. And the Bucs know better than anybody the kicking game can be hit or miss. Matt Guy certainly had his moments last year, both good and bad. So I'm hoping that, this next year will be an improvement. Certainly has a strong enough leg. Here's hoping the Buccaneers turn all those opportunities into touchdowns, and they don't have to worry that much. I don't care that much if he misses extra points. That means they're scoring touchdowns. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep over the Buccaneers special teams.
You know how you solve the field goal problem?
Score touchdowns.
That's it. I mean, it's that easy. Don't settle for field goals. But of course, everybody's looking at it. If you do have to settle for a field goal, in your opinion, do you have enough confidence in Matt Gay to get it done this year?
I do, because there were times last year when he was really good. Now there were times last year when he was really bad. And so I just think that anytime they get to the opponent's 40-yard line, you got a chance of scoring some points.
Yeah.
So I like Matt Gay. Now, if he goes out and, repeats some of the games he had last year, that could be different. But if we're sitting here in October or November, whining about special teams. Things are going pretty well.
All right, good stuff. Let's go back out to the webheads here. Peyton Manning says, Tim, Justin, we need a veteran cornerback bad. Do you believe that? Is that also one of the weak points? Because Jamel Dean came on strong last year. He was a third-round pick. You have Carlton Davis, who was previously a second-round pick. You also had Sean Murphy-Bunting, who was a second-round pick, and it certainly seems like the Bucs are going to go with that secondary. And I got to say, Al, that the secondary definitely improved with Vernon Hargraves moving on, not necessarily giving that effort with those young kids getting that valuable playing time. I kind of feel like, and once again, and this comes down to me being optimistic, when you're in the second year of Todd Bowles' system, you're going to get even more comfortable, and it all depends on that pass rush. If that pass rush is going, that secondary is much better off.
There's so many things that have to click that clicked at the end of last year, and that doesn't necessarily mean they'll click again this season.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting an awful lot in the hopeful pile, and you're putting an awful lot on the still very young defensive backs to play the way they did at the end of last year. And I still remember all too well what it was like for the first half of last year with these young kids before they got it, because after every single pass, they're all pointing fingers at each other. That was your guy. No, you were supposed to have them. Now, you would think they'll be better with that this year, but all it takes is a couple injuries here and there, and with no OTAs, can these guys continue to progress the way they did at the end of last season and make that hold up for the entire season? So many people are just assuming that that's going to happen. I think that's a whole lot easier said than done. So, I'm just hoping that there's a happy medium between as bad as they were at the beginning of last year and how good they were at the end of last year. Hopefully they can find that happy medium, and that is the floor, and they can improve from there.
Well, the reason why I'm so optimistic about it is because you're going to get JPP for a full year. And you remember that first half of the year, they didn't have him. So knock on wood, hopefully he doesn't get hurt. You'll have him. He definitely reinvigorated that defense when he came back the second half of the year. He took the pressure off of Shaq Barrett. And I feel like if you have both of those bookend outside rushers at that secondary, because it's all predicated at the end of the day. You could talk about secondary, whoever you want in that back end, but if you can't get after the opposing quarterback, and the Bucs were able to do that when JPP came back, I feel a lot better. Then if you can do that, then you're good. But if you can't, then it is on your secondary at that point. So that's why I'm optimistic about this season with the defense.
Well, just remember how much this team got a charge when JPP came back last year. It was at that point that this team started to take off. Yeah. And from that point on, they were a good defense. And we certainly didn't see that. We hadn't seen that for years here. So, they've done a great job of stopping the run. Now they have to stop giving up big plays with those young kids back there. And if they can do that, and if they can continue to improve, then I think now you're just leaving it up to Tom Brady. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, definitely take that all day long. All right, let's go back out to the webheads. Colts versus the Bucs, Monday Night Football in 2003. Yuck. That one. Other end, what was your favorite games, Al? Says Joshua Cole Allen, one of the newest writers here on Bucs Report. What's the other end of that spectrum?
Well, the obvious answer would be, the Lightning winning the Stanley Cup. And obviously when the Bucs won the Super Bowl, that was a lot of fun. But and that was fun for me because it was in San Diego, and I had worked in San Diego before coming out here. Mm-hmm. And obviously with the Lightning, winning the Stanley Cup, it was probably the only time in my career that I had a news director, I had a boss that listened to me about a month and a half before the playoffs even started. And I had a whole plan for covering the thing because the Stanley Cup finals were going to be on ABC and we were at ABC station. And I said, if everything plays out perfectly, this falls right into our lap and we can do amazing things covering this team. And if we start early, we'll own it early. And he allowed me to do exactly that. And I'll never forget, we had specials before every single game. Okay. Because again, we're airing the games. So day of game 7, we went to the morning skate to get our interviews and all this stuff. And we're told that we have a 30-minute show. So I come back in the station, and you've got to prepare for that 30-minute show along with your, how many sportscasts are you going to have that day?
Right.
So, I get right to work, and my news director comes in and says, everyone wants to advertise in this pregame special. So now we're going an hour. Oh, okay. I get that. Totally understand. And it'll be fun and all that kind of stuff. Well, 20 minutes goes by. He walks back in the office and he says, scratch that on the hour. It's now 2 hours. So, we got a chance to do whatever. But the best thing I ever covered was when I was in San Diego, and we covered the America's Cup. And the America's Cup, huge yacht race, huge in San Diego, not big in the rest of the world, but this was the first America's Cup that was covered really by ESPN. And it was in Australia, in Perth, Australia. So again, I had a news director that was, that believed in doing things, doing what I suggested. And so we went down to Australia, to cover this. And yes, it's a yacht race, but it was an event to beat all events. Because imagine 100,000 people going down to the marina, which is what you had. And, it was New Zealand. You had New Zealand fans, you had American fans, and they're tailgating for this yacht race. And when they would go out, the boats would leave the harbor, and there would be a flotilla of boats following these sailboats. And Australia is completely different than we are here in the United States. We get a little cranked up about stuff, and on all these boats, you had some extremely nice looking women that just didn't bother putting on tops. And so we had to be careful shooting what we shot, because in every single shot there would be boobage. And so, but that was one great event to cover.
Yes, I could see why that would be one great. You when you said boats, and I said, okay, all right, and then you said what you just said, then I get it. I understand.
And it makes sense.
I've been there before. I've had where you had to produce a radio show, and then there's women that are basically getting naked in the studio, and you not only, you're trying to focus on the guest, and you're also trying to focus on the show, and it's definitely very hard. It's a challenge. So.
Yeah, it's just a hell of a job there, Peter. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Such a tough job. And what you're watching right now is the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with the Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck, here on the Sports Web. Let's go back out to the web heads here. We all get angry at our teams when they fall apart at the end, so understandable. Absolutely, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final last year in Boston. Angry, sad, disappointing, so many feelings. And I think that's, the way of a sports fan. You're up, you're down, you're all over the place. It kind of describes, being a Bucks fan. And I know how the web heads out there and how people on Bucks Report and Bucks fans feel about that. I missed the run for the Cup. Bucks 35, Saints 28, says Sitton. At least the Bucks were smart enough to sign a kicker in the offseason just in case. That would be Elliott Fry. Is Shaq going to continue to dominate sack-wise? What do you think? Can he duplicate that effort of having 19 and a half sacks? I mean, that's a tall order. He doesn't necessarily have to hit that number, but of course, do you feel like he can dominate, or do you feel like there will be more offensive coordinators that will be centered on him and be able to put together a better game plan, because now he's out there, unlike last year when basically he was an unknown?
Well, I'm sure now opposing offensive coordinators are going to say the first thing they're going to do is make sure that Shaq Barrett doesn't kill him. And that's the first thing they're going to prepare for. So that's something they have to understand. But, there's still an awful lot of talent on that defense other than Shaq Barrett. So great, double team and do whatever you need to do. Game plan for Shaq Barrett. That'll hopefully leave some other people open and able to do some things that they'd like to do. So I don't expect him to get 19 and a half sacks next season. But if he can get double-digit sacks, that's still a hell of a year when you consider he will be a guy that'll definitely have a target on his back, and he will be a guy that opposing offenses will do everything they can to make sure that he's not the guy to beat them.
And you got to feel like, Al, that he's going to be determined because, remember, he signed that one-year franchise tag, so he definitely wants to earn that long-term extension. And the only way you can do that is putting it on the field 2-3 years in a row, and it starts this year. So he's definitely going to be determined. He wants to earn that second contract. It should be a very interesting year. And I go back to saying this, all these players are going to be better off in being in Todd Bowles' scheme because it's their second year. You have to get better. You don't get worse. You get better. Although, Bucs teams in the past have disputed that claim as they've gotten worse. So, once again, we'll see how it all plays out, but you got to feel optimistic, if you will, in my opinion. All right, let's go out to David here. The defense won't be on the field so long this year without all the turnovers. Fry, in my mind, isn't a real threat, just someone to push Gay so he doesn't get complacent. I still want to see them add someone else, and I think that would be the former Patriots kicker there. Ben says, Joshua Cole Allen, just the fact that the team did this is good. Sign, in my humble opinion. Gay has had great games, but also had some bad games. Reality was Matt cost us 2 games, Giants and Falcons at home. Nothing wrong with the little competition. Good stuff, Ben. Peter asked Al about the time he covered the Catalina wine mixer. How was that, Catalina wine mixer? Was that good?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that. It's okay. Ben, once again, trolling at 1,000 from Las Vegas. That is from Step Brothers. Good stuff. Ben Cornett, absolutely agree with you. I just hope they're not done adding competition for him once Corona dies down and they can get physicals on other players out there. Boobage, says Eric. And focus on the women. Absolutely. Agreed. It's tough sometimes, guys. It's a very tough job that we have here as broadcasters. We're just putting it out there. Not everybody can do it, okay? I don't think there's any way Bucs Saints won't be a high-scoring game. JPP freed up. That's a possibility. I'm excited to see White's progression continue as well. Where do you see his ceiling at? I think, the sky's the limit for White because whenever he was able to basically not only get healthy but also get comfortable in this defense, you saw the reason why the Bucs drafted him 5th overall, right?
Oh, absolutely. And towards the end of last year, he was really starting to catch on and come into his own. So I would think, he will just progress from there. I mean, they took him at that, number 5 overall for a reason. Mm-hmm. And you rarely take a middle linebacker at that spot, but the feeling was at the time he's so far and away better than any other middle linebacker at that position, in this draft, and he still grades out as one of the top players in this draft overall. That's why they took him there, and it was also for a position of need, so it worked out very well. And he was hurt early, took him a while to catch on, but once they did, he played very, very well.
All right, here's my prediction. Because of Luke Kuechly retiring, White has the opportunity to make the Pro Bowl. And the reason why he makes the Pro Bowl, because of his counterpart, Levante David. They solidify that defense with one of the best linebacking cores in the league. Mark it down right now, Al Keck, and all you web heads out there. Devin White makes the Pro Bowl along with Levante David. Want to read this comment, and then we will get out to Levante David on the Jim Rome show today. Signing Gronk was huge. I think we forgot about that. Someone Brady is familiar with, and he's amazing, even if he's not 100% Gronk. Agree with that?
Absolutely. If he's 80% Gronk, he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the league, and he's going to be with the Bucs receivers as it is. I mean, my goodness, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Now you throw in even an 80% Gronk. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what those guys could do and what they could be? I know a lot of this is just talk, and that's, both the fun and the bad of the off season. And once they get out there, then someone's got a nagging injury. It's hard to keep all three on the field at once. It's, you end up dealing with, that kind of stuff once the actual season begins. But hopefully for the season opener and for the Saints, it'll be that type of game, a game where all those guys are healthy, and it'll be fun to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, it would nice to see him in the end zone, basically dunking the ball in the end zone for the Bucs, at least catching a couple of touchdowns. All right, what I'm going to go ahead and do is put you in the lobby. We're going to hear from Levante David. He was on the Jim Rome show, so sit tight here, okay?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So Levante David was on the Jim Rome show today. He talked about Brady coming to the Bucs and also Gronk here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Enjoy.
Or go home. Levante David joining us. So in terms of the offseason moves, take me back when it was announced that Tom Brady was going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. How did you first learn that news, and what was your reaction when you found out?
Friends and family was contacting me, saying that we might have a run at Tom Brady, but knowing me, I'm like, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm not gonna believe it till I see it. That man's a Patriot. The Patriots not gonna let him go. And then as it kept getting closer and closer, and I kept hearing more and more speculation. And in my mind, I'm like, hey, this might really be happening. And then one day, across the ticker on ESPN, I saw it. Tom Brady plans to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then it became official, and that's when it hit me. I'm like, wow, it really happened. It really happened. We got one of the greatest players of all time, greatest quarterback of all time, 6 Super Bowl winner coming in to help us get to that level. It's amazing. It just goes to show the type of team that he saw that we had that could help us, get to the championships and try to earn some of the rings like he got. So, it was amazing to see, man. And, so far, Tom's been a great player, man, a great asset for us. And we definitely going to do all we can to learn from him. We also going to try to play the best football we can.
Levante David joining us. I think you make a great point that Tom Brady, the alleged GOAT, looks at what you're building there and says, I want to be a part of that. And not just him, but Rob Gronkowski as well. Before the draft, the word comes down that the team had made a deal for him as well. What was your reaction when you heard that news?
Yeah, that was even more insane. I'm like, wow, man, it's crazy. One of the greatest tight ends of all time want to come join our young nucleus, man, and want to help us get wins. Like I said, man, it goes to show that, the type of team we have and what we're building over here and what people think of us. People want to come, people with that type of caliber want to come and play with us and join our locker room. It's amazing to have, but all it does is just raise our expectations even more higher. And, we basically came from the hunters to the hunted. I don't know how that happened because, we haven't done much in the past years. But since we added those two guys, people got us on a lot of the boards to be in the Super Bowl. But it's work to be put in first. But so far, it's been a good start.
There you go. Welcome back to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. That was Levante David on the Jim Rome show. And I think what I take out of that, his excitement level, he's considered to be a very underrated player, not only a defensive player, but just a very underrated player, a leader on this team. He's excited about it, much like Mike Evans is with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. And even he said, you go from the hunter to the hunted. How did that happen? And it just happens. That's the Brady effect, and that's also the Gronk effect.
Well, I think with those two guys coming over, that once they walk on the field, once they walk in the locker room, the other players in the Bucs are going to look at them and watch how they do things. And if you hear anything about Gronk, and especially Tom Brady, what you hear is those two guys work really hard. So even though they're considered to be the greatest of all time at their respective positions, they don't slack. They work harder than anybody else, which is going to rub off on the rest of your teammates. And when the rest of your teammates see, oh my gosh, Brady's doing this, this, and this along with practice, and he's already won 6 Super Bowls, and he's doing all this stuff. and he tells me to do certain things, I guess I better do the same thing. And, I remember when the Bucks played the Patriots, oh gosh, probably about 5 years ago, I'm thinking. It was when Greg Schiano was the head coach.
Oh.
And I remember that there was a drill that the Patriots were going through. And, it was Brady on the field. Brady was the quarterback. And I'm watching this. And, Brady, in fact, it was the 2-minute drill. That's what it was. And I see Brady complete a pass to Julian Edelman. And now this is practice, okay? And Edelman comes back, just kind of jogs back to the huddle. And Brady just lays into him. That's not the way we do things here. You sprint back to the huddle during a 2-minute drill. That ain't good enough, That's how he does things. And that's how he's going to do things with the Bucks. And the difference here is those receivers, not say that Edelman is not a good player, but the vast majority, the Bucks have more good receivers than the Patriots have ever had. That's going to rub off on a Mike Evans, on, a Chris Godwin, and all this, and an OJ Howard and a Cameron Brate. And if those guys are, now have to put that kind of effort in along with their talent, then you can't help but improve offensively. So that's what that's what those two guys bring to this more than anything else. We may not even see it as much on game day as you will see it during the practice and how this team will progress. And hopefully by the end of the season, we will see that all that stuff will pay off.
Yeah, and even Mike Evans talked about this on Lewis Murphy's Instagram the other night. He was saying that Tom Brady, look, if they couldn't get Tom Brady, he wanted Jameis Winston as his quarterback. But if you could get Tom Brady is a franchise changer, and he's about to change this franchise. You talked about ticket sales. I mean, there's just a level of excitement that has taken over the Bay Area the last 2 to 3 months here. And it's great. And it's exactly what I feel like sports fans in the Tampa Bay area have needed because of COVID-19 and because there isn't any baseball and there isn't any hockey. I want to read this comment from Tim Andre. What Levante was saying is beautiful. We do have a young nucleus, and we now have a window that isn't opened long, but we can get through and make history for being the first home team in the Super Bowl. Also, we won in 2002 and 2020, the same numbers, different order. So that's how Tim is looking at it. I look at it as Super Bowl or bust. I know there's some people out there say, make the playoffs. Coach Arians talked about the expectations the other day, saying, look, we got to make the playoffs, but we don't mind all the primetime games, and we're up for the challenge. Of course, we definitely want to put a ring on our fingers. So
here's the main thing, Peter. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it throughout that process when we were waiting to see what was going to happen for the Bucs quarterback situation. And we talked about it every night,
right,
that we were together. And it's the fact that what Tom Brady does is exactly what we've seen since the day he has agreed to become the Bucs' new quarterback. He makes them relevant. And all you have to do is turn on ESPN or Fox not once a week, not once a month, not every now and then, every single day on all these, shows, opinion shows where people are spouting opinions. Every single show, they talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That has never happened. Even when they won the Super Bowl, there hasn't been this kind of talk about the Bucs or the relevancy of the Tampa Bay Bucs. And it is going to continue throughout the season because if they win, they will be a huge story. If they lose, they will be a huge story. Yeah. And it's fun after all these years of, watching the rest of the NFL, and then you have the Bucs, to be in the middle of everything that everybody's talking about, especially now during this COVID-19 mess, when the sports world is desperate for just anything other than some of the tragedy that's going on around the world. It's incredible. And this area needs it as much as you can possibly need it. And here we are, mid-May. I can only imagine what it's going to be like come September.
I mean, let's do it now, Al. I mean, I get it. There's COVID. Let's get safe. Let's all stay at home so you can have a football season. And then let's start it up in September on time. Of course, we'll get back to that in a moment because Dr. Fossey was talking to Peter King of Sports Illustrated. We'll get back to that in a moment. Let's go out to the web heads here. Let's see. Levante David has been great since he came into the NFL. He just doesn't get the respect. Absolutely believe that. Let's see. Sadamar Bucks Report on a nightly basis. Absolutely. We're trying to do as many broadcasts as possible. Everybody else does once a day, or once a night. That's called a podcast. This is called the evolution of sports talk television. Join the 64,000, hopefully 65,000 on Facebook. And of course, like and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and of course on Twitter. Is it a radio show? Is it a TV show? It's both. But it gives you that opportunity to get interactive if you're a fan as a webhead, and also call the phone line, which we will open up in a moment here. Clay Matthews to the Bucks, that's been talked about. Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, Florida changed the Bucks a lot. The Bucks signing Gronk as well put the Bucks on a different level now. Wow. This is the best show. Sports Web, thank you. Best virtual edits video. Appreciate you. PRH, like, for real, do you think the Cowboys are better with them signing the new quarterback, or are they pretty much the same? We kind of talked about Dak Prescott, and there was a rumor out there, Al, that he could be the highest paid NFL player in their history. You look at the statistics for Prescott, 30 touchdowns last year, 11 interceptions. They have a plethora of weapons, much like the Bucs. So to answer your question, Daryl, I do think they're a better team with signing Prescott. The problem is Dak wants 4 years. The Cowboys want 5. And usually when you sign a franchise quarterback, it kind of takes away from the rest of your team. But Jerry Jones seems like he has all the money in the world. So how do you feel about this? Prescott to the Cowboys, or do you feel comfortable with going with the redhead and Andy Dalton?
Well, they're not going to go with Andy Dalton. He is an insurance policy.
Right.
He is. And he will be that and nothing more. But they will somehow, when all this, remember a year ago at this time, everyone was, pounding their fist and, talking, gloom and doom because Ezekiel Elliott had not signed, was going to hold out. Well, what happened? They ended up finding a way to sign Zeke Elliott to a multi-year deal. And quite honestly, maybe they shouldn't have signed him to the deal that they did because of what running backs right now mean in the NFL. All that said, Zach Prescott is something different. And here's the thing. Zach will sign a new contract. But the minute Zach signs a new contract, believe me, he'll be over. He will be lapped by, Patrick Mahomes and Watson. Those guys will both overlap him, will go well past him. And that's just going to be the way it is right now. And that's always the way it is for quarterbacks.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And speaking of that, let's go out to the story today that was on Pro Football Talk. The odds of who's the favorite to win the NFL MVP, and that would be Patrick Mahomes, who won it a couple years ago with 50 touchdowns. He's a 4-1 favorite. Lamar Jackson, 13-2. Dak Prescott, 9-1. Russell Wilson, 12-1. Tom Brady, 16-1. Kyler Murray, 16-1. Drew Brees, 20-1. Aaron Rodgers, 25-1. Deshaun Watson, 28-1. Christian McCaffrey, 40-1. There hasn't been a running back that's won it since 2012 when Adrian Peterson nearly went nearly broke Eric Dickerson's rushing record. The guy that has the most odds here, Mitchell Trubisky, 250 to 1. 16 to 1 is kind of low with all those weapons and Tom Brady. He's being compared to Kyler Murray. I mean, that's kind of disrespectful, isn't it now?
Well, again, when you win this offseason the way the Bucs have,
right,
and the fact that the Bucs, again, are mentioned every single day of the week on ESPN and Fox, you're going to have people that want to temper those expectations. Well, let them temper those expectations, because all we're saying right now means nothing. It's diddly squat. What we're talking about right now means absolutely nothing once they kick off on September 13th, which, by the way, is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. That's a good omen.
Once they kick off, everything that we have set up to this point means nothing. So, and opinions are like belly buttons. Everyone's got one. So, it doesn't matter what I say or what they say, or if someone thinks that, Tom Brady is 16 to 1 and winning the MVP. All I know is that if the Bucs make the playoffs and Tom Brady throws for 4,000 yards and has at least 25 touchdown passes, then he's had a pretty damn good season.
Yeah, well, I think he could have over 30 touchdowns, honestly, in this offense.
If Jameis Winston can have 33 touchdowns and 5,000 yards and 5,100 yards, and Brady takes care of the football, and the Bucs average 30 points instead of 29, they won't be 9-7. Believe me.
No.
They'll be in double-digit wins. They will be in the playoffs. And once they get to the playoffs, anything can happen.
All right, let's go back out to the web heads here. Read these comments. Of course, we read that. Let's see. I don't know what you think. See this season. I see the Bucs will end this season 14-2. I think they will lose the game versus the team that goes to the Super Bowl. So he's saying 14-2, lose in the NFC Championship game. Signing my bad. Tyler Johnson comp. I don't know what a good Tyler Johnson comp is, but I interviewed the kid at the Outback Bowl. Really like him. Odell Beckham type of catch in the Outback Bowl doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate over. Yeah, I kind of think he's a little bit like Chris Godwin. He has deceptive speed, but he gets it done. Good body control. Makes a lot of catches, has been through those adverse situations at Minnesota. Even PJ Fleck talked glowingly about how he addressed those situations and where he could have actually came out earlier, but decided to stay in school, get coaching under PJ Fleck, who, of course, was the former wide receiving coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it definitely paid off.
Well, here's the thing. This kid makes plays.
Right.
And and we get all caught up in 40 time and what you can bench and this and all that stuff. Bottom line, once you're in the game, do you make a play? And this kid makes plays. Okay. To get that kid where they did, and I thought everyone said that this is one of the better wide receiver classes in years, and that you can get a quality wide receiver even around 3. Well, you get this kid around 5, I think it was.
Yep.
This is a kid that makes plays. And in the bigger games of the year, this kid came through. And I mean, the biggest game of the year was the Outback Bowl, and the kid went berserk. So, I like the kid. I like what, he can bring. And I like the possibilities. There's absolutely no pressure on this kid. No one expects anything. So anything they get out of this kid is certainly going to be major stuff. And, the fact that, you could put him in that third receiver spot or just put him in certain, in certain situations, Whew, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, you've got so many combinations there. You can put him in the slot. You can put him in the outside. Of course, Chris Godwin, 50% of the time, was in the slot. I mean, can you imagine Godwin, number 14, in the slot with Tom Brady? The numbers could be astronomical with this team and what they could do offensively. You've got to feel like Byron Leftwich and, of course, Coach Bruce Arians definitely has a plan going forward, and I definitely think they do. I'm confident all better with inside of you for that. We will be football season with fans. Hopefully there is fans in the stands. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit later here. Yes, he isn't worth $40 million per season. Cool. We 100% agree. Okay, I read that. Eric, the only way we don't win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years is not a bust if somehow we land an amazing quarterback when Tom leaves, but that is doubtful. Where is Winston? Haha, sorry. I'll stop. I promise. Me says a bold prediction that I'm sure we'll get butchered for. All right. Bucks lose week 1 and offense struggles. I mean, that's certainly a possibility, me, Sador. And, of course, being a part of the Buckaholics out there in Indiana.
Well, remember, I think it was John Gruden's first game. They played the Saints.
Correct.
At Raymond James Stadium and lost.
Yep.
And there was so much hype going into that game. I remember the disappointment with that. So, it's a 16-game season. So whatever happens week 1, that's just 1/16 of what it means during the regular season. So we'll see. I just hope it gets to that point. I hope it gets to the point where we can see an opening game, and that subsequent games are played from there.
Agree. All right. Al Keck is amazing. He always says what's true. Just like you, Peter H. Blake, you too make an awesome team for real. Appreciate you. That's my mentor, by the way, Mr. Al Keck, just saying, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend. Let's see. Eric, I agree with Al. All this talk is meaningless. That's why I hate when people do schedule releases, show predicting each game. Do you realize how hard it is to predict an NFL game, especially months away? What a joke, but we will do it here, Eric, just because you love it and because you need us here on the Sports Web. If I say Bucs offense struggles, the Buccaneers defense wins the game, that's certainly a possibility that nobody has really mentioned. And look, everybody kind of talks about all the time Drew Brees. When is that year that he really struggles? Could it be the year where Drew Brees kind of shows? Because he showed a little bit. He got hurt last year. Of course, Teddy Bridgewater came in and he wasn't able to get over the hump versus the Vikings. So could this be the year where the Saints offense struggles? Or once again, am I blowing smoke where?
Well, no, because, let's look at what the results are. Drew Brees is considered to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But what have we seen in recent years? Plays well early in the year. End of the year starts to slack off. Last year got hurt. They make it into the playoffs, and they don't get to the Super Bowl. So, I have the utmost respect for Drew Brees. I really do. But in recent years, they've not been able to get to the Super Bowl. And with all the hype that you've seen surrounding this team, you would think that they would be a whole lot closer getting to the Super Bowl than they have been. Okay, I know there's, you can talk about that penalty that wasn't called and this and that and all that kind of stuff. Bottom line, they still haven't gotten there. Drew Brees is a great player. He really is. But, I'll take Tom Brady over Drew Brees. I really will. And I'll take what Tom Brady has done over Drew Brees and what he has done. And so, now let's see. Let him play. Let's see game 1, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you wonder about his mental makeup, and that would be Brees, because there was some considerations in the offseason that he could retire. So, look, if a player's already thinking about retirement, that would give me, some pause to really, consider. And then on top of it, look, he's going to be a broadcaster next year. I mean, this is his last year. I get it. He has that extra motivation, but I just kind of go back to that whole mental makeup part about it. If you're not ready to play, and we hear from Tom Brady throughout the offseason, he's rejuvenated. He loves the challenge. You don't necessarily hear that from Drew Brees. What you hear is there was some doubt of him coming back. So, if it's in your head already, if it's in the back of your mind that you could get hurt or you're not necessarily one of the best in the game, I'm just saying maybe it is a down year for Brees.
Well, here's the thing. The Saints have a great quarterback. They have a great offense. They have a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bucs going into that season opener this year will have a great coach. They will have a great quarterback who's considered to be the best of all time. And they will have weapons on offense that match up very well with any team in the NFL. And if you were to take, I know Michael Thomas is awfully good, but I'll take Mike Evans, I'll take Chris Godwin, and I'll take Gronk, okay, for that one game with Tom Brady when no one knows what to expect from Tom Brady. So, at that point, it becomes a crazy game. Who knows what can happen, especially with the fact it's in New Orleans. But the Bucs have shown, especially with many of the same players that are on this team right now, that they're not intimidated by going into the Superdome and playing the Saints. So at that point, I think it's a fun game to watch, and I like the Bucs' chances.
And the people don't mention this, but there may not be any fans. So that home field advantage that you always have to fight through, because Saints fans are absolutely nuts. If you don't have that crowd noise or you have little to anything at all, that may be an advantage for the Bucs instead of the Saints. Just saying. All right, let's go back out there. Tyler Johnson says Misador runs clean routes. He has a few to no false steps off the line and hand joust well off the snap. Bucs Report, I agree. The D will be further along. However, you have who you will have little to no chemistry with the key weapons, which is what we're talking about with the offense. Shooty Shoot says it's a sports web with the very special guest, Mr. Al Keck, who's on here every Tuesday night on the Evolution. Will OJ finally be used this offseason? I feel like this is a great opportunity for OJ Howard. Not only did he have his fifth-year option picked up, but the pressure is off him, Al, to be the number one tight end. Now he can be the number two tight end, and maybe that leads to some favorable matchups against the opposing defense.
Or he could be, as Keith Larson says, and I think he makes a great point, in many situations, he could be the number 3 wide receiver.
Yes.
So, I mean, imagine going Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, and OJ Howard, and you got that young running back. Okay. As long as Tom Brady has time to do what he wants to do, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a mismatch nightmare at that point. All right, let's see here. It's an evolution. It absolutely is. Bucs lost to the Saints in 0-2. They did. That's okay if the O struggles. Our defense is pretty good too, says Best. Virtual edits. Video offense will take time to gel. Dwayne Beatty, Uncle Dwayne. Hello, Peter H. Blake. Thanks for having the best of the best, Mr. Al Keck. There you go. Misador, Breeze is hurt in the first half. Week 1, who throws more completions to the Bucs, Brady or Winston? Why do you do that? How you want to answer that question?
Well, I think when it's all said and done, Jameis Winston will be a very effective starting quarterback in the NFL. It just wasn't going to be with the Bucs, and I think his best football is ahead of him. And many times that happens. That first situation you go to just doesn't work out the way everyone hopes or thinks it will. I think he will have a very good NFL career. It just won't, obviously, it just wasn't going to be in Tampa Bay. Now, if you have a chance to get Tom Brady, no matter what you think of what the career of Jameis Winston can be, you've got to go after Tom Brady if you have that opportunity, especially at the price they got him. Okay. So, I don't think anyone begrudges, even Jameis, I think doesn't begrudge the Bucs and understands why they turned to Brady instead of him. But that doesn't mean that Jameis Winston isn't going to go out and still play very well in his career someplace else. I just don't know. It might be with the Saints. I don't know. But, I think he made a very good decision at very low money, betting on himself, signed a 1-year deal that he will get, an incredible, he called it grad school. He'll be going to grad school to really learn about what it's like to play the quarterback position in the NFL. And if he decides to become a free agent, look around next year, even if he doesn't play a snap, there are going to be a lot of people that will be very interested in Jameis Winston.
Absolutely agree with that. Brady can do what Montana did for the Chiefs. I will be happy. I hope Bucks Brass and Al Keck saw something no one else did in Keyshawn Vaughn. Is anyone else worried about a running game O-line? Are you still worried about it? I know the offensive line, 47 sacks. It's going to be a big-time question mark. A lot of people don't like Donovan Smith. I feel like everybody on that line has to raise their game, and it's exactly what you mentioned. Brady is going to get on them if they don't do what they need to do. He's talked about it on the Howard Stern show a couple months ago about how you got to be a professional. I'm not going to call you out, but we've seen in game time situations where if you miss a block or you don't run the right route, you're going to get called out. And I feel like that line's going to be improved for it. Of course, the question is, not only can Donovan Smith and an offensive line, open up those holes and pass protect, but also can that rookie Tristan Wirfs step in there from day one to play that right side?
Well, if Donovan Smith ends up being the weakest link on this offensive line, obviously you don't want that from your left tackle. But when you look at the personnel right there, a year ago, it was clear the right tackle was the biggest weak spot. And Alex Kappa, I think, will be better. Ryan Jensen, more will be expected from him. And if he has better people around him, I think he will be better. And from there, Ali Marpet, has been considered to be the Bucs' best offensive lineman over the years. Now's his chance to solidify that. So that leaves Donovan Smith, who's paid very well, who got a good contract a year ago to improve his play. And his play has not been horrid, but he definitely needs to improve. And if everybody else is improving around him, I think that means chances are he'll improve as well. So, we just wanted to see this Buck offensive line improve. I think with the first round draft pick, I think that will be the case. And I certainly hope so, because if it's not, everything we've been talking about up to this point means nothing.
Agree. Let's see here. I would love OJ in the slot. Howard, any safety? Gerald Floyd says, who cares? You do, because you just mentioned it. Open up those phone lines, Peter. Haha. We will in a moment. I actually think JW3 is going to be good in the league. We've talked about that. Gerald Floyd, I was just stating that the lost week one isn't a big deal. The media will make it that way. Of course, it will be the underlining story. Anyone see Tom Brady on Stu Gott's podcast? Kind of disappointing how short it was, but check it out if you haven't. We'll get on that. Want to go out to this story from Albert Breer of SI.com. Multiple teams are exploring the opportunity to go out of state with training camp sites in the hope of finding a place to put 150 or so people for a few weeks. The West Coast and the Northeast more affected by this. Of course, California extended their order stay until July. Arizona actually has done a U-turn on this, and where their mayor has talked about it, where he's opening it up, and they're going to open it up on Friday. So, some good things coming out of the situation with COVID-19 involving sports, teams looking to go to other states. Could you see the NFL kind of doing what the NHL is exploring, the NBA and other leagues around sports, going to one central location and playing games there? Or do you think that they will continue to play in their own cities?
Well, I think they'll continue to play in their own cities. I'm not sure we'll see fans in week number one. But I could see them going to training camp at places where, COVID-19 is certainly not an issue. And let's remember that your general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is Jason Light. Jason Light played his college football in Nebraska. You know, Nebraska is not exactly, you know, the center place for COVID-19 right now. You know, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Bucs went and trained in Nebraska. You could certainly do that and make sure that you get, you know, a good month of solid practice, you know, in Nebraska and not have to worry about that. I could see something like that happening. So, you know, I just, you know, it's the middle of May.
Yeah.
So much stuff is going to happen between now and the time that training camp is supposed to start. You know, I'm just hoping for this football team. I wouldn't mind seeing this football team reporting to Nebraska in mid-January to get an OTA in. You know, I mean, that's going to, the problem is going to be if, unless every team can have an OTA, no teams are going to have an OTA. And if there's ever a team that's desperate for an OTA right now, it's the Buccaneers with Tom Brady.
Yeah, and that was the governor of Arizona, Doug DeRay, letting the stay-at-home order expire Friday. NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, MLS can resume practicing and playing in the state on Saturday without fans. He says this is a green light to proceed. It's not a green light to speed. That's awesome. Of course, the NFL enacting phase 1 here. They have to get consent from local statement and government officials. So we'll see how that works out. ESPN is reporting also that the NFL is looking into increasing the team's debt line from $350 to $500 million. They say, ESPN says, without the fans, the NFL could lose $138 million per week for the regular season without fans. That would equal out to $2.3 billion for the year and $71.8 million per a team. Playing games on Saturday is also a possibility, especially what happens with college football. So increasing the debt at this point, you know, for me, if you feel like this situation is not safe, and I know we've talked about it and we'll continue to talk about it because it becomes the main story, whether it's sports or whatever else. If you feel like there's a threat, why not just delay the inevitable and go into October and be safe?
Well, here's what's going to happen, Peter, and we'll find out very quickly. If by mid-July, if testing is at the point where anybody in this country can't get a test, then everything is going to be pushed back, you know, because it's all about testing. You can't do anything until you test your entire team and staff when you go into training camp and know who's got it and who doesn't, you know, who's asymptomatic and who's not. You know, all this stuff means nothing without that information. And, you know, we're getting closer day by day by day. And if there's anything disappointing that I've seen in the way all this stuff has been handled, it's the fact that testing is still where it is. And it shouldn't be like that, you know. So now they're at the point where you can, you know, do a blood test by poking your finger, and with the blood test find out, you know, very quickly, you know, if you've got it and what the situation is. But everyone is going to be able to need access to that. And pro sports leagues are not going to go forward until everybody has access to that, because no one wants the bad publicity of, okay, I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida. I've got symptoms, but I can't get a test. But the entire Tampa Bay Buccaneers team and their staff can get a test. Okay. There ain't a pro sports league on this earth that's going to go through that and want that kind of stuff hanging over their head. So we got to get testing. And really at this point, when you think this goes back to January, here we are in May, and if we're still struggling, we should not be struggling to get the testing that we need on this. It's asinine. So we need to get testing. Once they get testing, then things will start opening up, because then you can see exactly what you're up against. No one's going to open anything as far as pro sports are concerned until you know what you're up against.
Yeah. All right. Peter King interviewed Anthony Fauci, of course, who is the doctor that runs the task force for the White House for the coronavirus. He says, I think it's feasible that negative testing players could play to an empty stadium. It isn't guaranteed in no way. Depends on community. If the infection rate is still high, you can't have a season. It's impossible. Fauci says that sweat won't transmit the virus. Someone with the virus could easily spread it to different parts of their body. And as soon as they come in contact with another player, it could easily affect them. He also goes on to say, what would happen is if a player on a team tested positive, you would have to shut it down. You got a problem here. You know why? Because it's likely that if 4 of them are positive and they've been hanging around together, the other ones that are negative are really positive. So, I mean, if you have an outlier, which would be the one player testing positive, I think you might get away. But once you wind up with having a situation where it looks like the spread within the team, you got a real problem. And he said 4 players. So let's say they do start on time in September. And again, I'm just looking into the crystal ball. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be realistic about the situation. Let's say that 4 players on a team test positive. At that point, even one player, I feel like, just like the NBA, the NFL would have to consider shutting it down, quarantining, and starting in October. I'm just saying at this point, it's a scary situation. You don't know where you're going to be in September, and hopefully we're in a better situation in September, but only 4 players in this doctor's mind, that's when you're in big trouble.
Well, Peter, if it gets to the point to where you're testing in September and you get 4 people testing positive, let's not forget that they will have gone through an entire training camp the month before that. So when they initially go to training camp, they're going to be tested. Well, they're in training camp, they're going to be tested. And not just once, but several times. And so if they get to week 1 and 4 players come up positive, you got a lot bigger problems than just 4 players coming up positive. You know, you're going to have major problems throughout the league at that point. So, you know, October may not do it. You know, they may have to push that back to February, you know, and get things going from there. That's just the world we're staring at, you know, and I think, you know, college football is going to be a thing to where, you know, the SEC is bound to determine to play this season in September. They have to fund their university. Okay. Out west, the California schools are will be nowhere near ready to go in September. Do you think the SEC is going to wait for the Pac-12 to get its act together? I don't think so. You know, so the SEC will play in September, okay, or at least start in September. May not be before crowds, but I think you'll see crowds in the SEC before anybody else in college football. And so, you know, we're just going to have to wait and see. College football could wait until February to start playing again. You know,
it's crazy.
But, you know, you're not going to see the Pac-12 play in a long time. And the SEC could not care less. The SEC is going to worry about the SEC. And that's the way it should be. The ACC, when it comes to college basketball, will worry about the ACC and nobody else. So we're going to see a whole new world, which may, you know, this year or this season, these seasons, which may set up a whole new world next year. You know, all this stuff about baseball, we're hearing so much about baseball today, about how the owners have come up with a plan and they want a 50-50 split with the revenues, you know. And I understand for an 82 game season, why do I want to pay Mike Trout his entire salary, you know, when you're only playing 82 games? You know, I get that. You know, why would an owner want to do that? And it's also, you know, if I'm a player, I understand. Oh, I find it very interesting how now you're talking about playing, you know, 50-50, and you're saying it's for this season only, and you've got a new collective bargaining agreement coming up very soon after this season. And I can guarantee you in the, Major League Baseball, they're the only major sport that hasn't had a salary cap, and the players who have probably the strongest players union in all of professional sports, and one of the strongest unions in American labor, they do not want a salary cap, and they do not want a 50-50 split. And it's very interesting how the owners are now presenting that now. And, they know exactly what they're doing. And they know there's pushback from the players. At the players right now, when there's 20% unemployment in this world, and people are just hoping and praying their unemployment check comes in so they can buy groceries and make certain payments that they need to make. They don't want to hear about Major League Baseball players complaining about their salaries. So the owners know what they're doing, and the owners know this is the best opportunity they have to get a salary cap in Major League Baseball, and they're going to pull everything they can in order to make that happen. And that's just the world we live in right now when it comes to professional sports.
Speaking of basketball, and you're on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Chris Paul, the president of the Players Association with the NBA, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Giannis, the Greek Freak, Kawhi Leonard, Stephon Curry, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook are all trying to push this vote through because they're trying to have a vote to try to bring the NBA back. The other players kind of don't want to do it. In fact, the majority of the players who are essentially eliminated just want to put the top 8 teams in the playoffs and go like that. Adam Silver on Friday basically said, I cannot guarantee the safety of my players, yet you have superstars who obviously want to get paid, but still want to try to win a championship. The majority of the players don't feel safe. So should Adam Silver continue the NBA season with just having the top 8 NBA teams and call it a day?
Well, we're May 12th right now. Even if the NBA said, hey, we want to go, it won't be until at least mid-June before they even start thinking about what they need to do. And they, start playing someplace on July 1. So much can happen, as we've seen, So, Adam Silver is right. On May 12th, he cannot guarantee the safety of his players and staff in the NBA. And there are all kinds of possibilities out there as far as going to, Arizona or coming to Florida or playing in certain places. And everyone just in Vegas, showing up in a town, hole everybody up in in hotels. And you just go play these games like summer league games, in a couple of arenas and take it from there. That may be what they're looking for. But, with sports fans, would we as people go for something like that? Heck, yes. I mean, for crying out loud, we're watching Korean baseball right now.
Not me.
So we don't care if there's anybody in the stands. If we can see LeBron take on the Clippers, who cares? Who's in the stands. We want to just be able to watch that on TV. And you don't think LeBron doesn't want? I mean, he knows what kind of season his Lakers were having, and he just wants to win an NBA championship. He doesn't care what it looks like. So he wants to get back out there and do whatever he can to win another championship. But yes, on May 12th or May 13th or even May 15th, the NBA cannot guarantee the safety of anybody at this point. Neither could Major League Baseball. Neither could a hospital in New York City or a hospital in Lansing, Michigan. So that's just where we are right now. We've got to get through this. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But what I do admire, watch the NFL. Because the NFL, if the NFL didn't have information and didn't really study everything and didn't really look very closely at what could happen, it has prepared itself. It's prepared to go on September 13th or September 10th, whatever it is, whatever opening day is, whatever that Thursday is, they're prepared to go. They're going to prepare to go until they get to the point to where someone says, this just won't fly, Wilbur. And everyone else is just kind of, in a holding pattern. The NBA is going forward. They're planning, and they're going like something's going to happen, which to me, you have to do. You plan for that until it gets to the point to where you absolutely can't. And if that's the case, well, then you got bigger problems than trying to go on opening day on the second week in September.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. All right, let's go ahead and change subjects here from the whole COVID mess to the story we reported last night from Gary Myers of the NFL, longtime NFL writer, and he was saying on Pro Football Talk that basically there was some deterioration of the relationship between offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady. Well, after the show last night, Tom Brady decided to respond. In fact, he stole one of our catchphrases here. Please stop with the nonsense. Please be more responsible with reporting. Brady tagged McDaniels in his Instagram response with the heart emoji and added 19 years together and brothers for life. Now, what makes this story so interesting or so not fly-worthy, because Myers reported it, when Brady left, McDaniels had this to say, according to Zach Cox of NESN: I have so much gratitude for Tom Brady. He has made me a better coach and, more importantly, a better person. He has always been generally kind and caring to me and my family. Yet, at the same time, I have never met anyone as demanding and relentless in his pursuit of improvement, perfection, and championships. His work ethic and drive propelled our offense and our team to perform at the very highest level throughout his career. He represented all of us with class and integrity. We will miss his passion and intensity, his character and wisdom, and his preparation and diligence. I will miss all the meetings, FaceTimes, emails, and texts in our pursuit of good play. He always performed his best in the most critical times under the most significant pressure. I have never coached a tougher player in my career. Al, does that sound like a coach that's kind of fed up of Brady, and then Brady coming to the defense? I mean, tell me, what the heck is going on here? It certainly seems like this is just a slow news season where somebody is trying to look for clicks.
Well, you got to look at the reporter that reported. It was Gary Myers, who's made a career out of taking something, trying to make it something bigger, and in reality, he's made more out of it than what it really is. He wrote an entire book about the Dallas Cowboys, and talked about the dysfunction. The Dallas Cowboys at a time when they were winning Super Bowls under Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Were there crazy things that happened during that time? Absolutely. But the only reason there's crazy things happen at that time is because the great players that were doing the crazy things were great players. And if they weren't great players, they weren't going to be there. And it's like any other business. If you have people that excel over other people, they're going to be given a little more rope than anyone else. I'm not a big fan of Gary Myers. He's a New York reporter that's been given a ton of opportunity on every pregame show and every football show out there, but it's always a one and done. It just doesn't stick what he says. Now, I would think all those years with a quarterback and an offensive coordinator, there's going to be some times when you have some hard feelings between the two. Mm-hmm. That happens in every workplace, in every work situation, But for Tom, if believe me, do you think Robert Kraft would, if that were the reason that the Patriots and Tom Brady parted ways, that he would allow that to happen?
No,
that an assistant coach is coming between Tom Brady finishing his career where he's won 6 Super Bowls and staying with the Patriots, or going to Tampa Bay, and it's going to be an assistant coach that causes that. I don't think so. I mean, you've got to just use common sense in a lot of this stuff that you hear from some of this national media, because they're not there on a daily basis. And if you look at what the people that are around the Patriots on a regular basis, they've just rolled their eyes over this. So bottom line is this, Tom Brady left the New England Patriots because the Patriots decided they no longer wanted him there. So they made it very easy for him to leave, which he did. And he came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers believe he has enough left in him at quarterback to be better than what they had in Jameis Winston. So if that's the case with all the other weapons that they have and an improving defense, then I like what the Bucs have done. And you could come up with every excuse, everything about who Tom Brady liked and who he didn't like and who the Patriots liked over Tom Brady and, all this kind of stuff. You can bring all that stuff up, but it doesn't matter. Fact remains, when the Bucs start in mid-September, I think they'll be a better football team than they were a year ago.
All right, good stuff. You want to take some phone calls really quick, and then we'll
Sure.
get here? All right, let's go ahead, open up the phone line, 727-266-5851. It's 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. In fact, we're going to go back to somebody who called before. We're going to surprise call him. Who does this? We do. In fact, here they go. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. You're on the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Peter. It's Josh. How you doing?
Doing good, Josh. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Just, sitting here listening to, the legend Al Keck. How you doing, Al?
I'm doing well. How are you, Josh?
I just had a couple points to touch on that you guys brought up. You brought up the scenario about Tom Brady 16-1 odds, for the MVP. And Al pretty much said how, you got to tone it down, all the media attention and all the expectations. I mean, if you look at this team right now as well, Jason Light, if they make the playoffs, he's almost a shoo-in for GM of the year, especially if they win a Super Bowl. You have Antoine Winfield, who could definitely easily, be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year, Gronk Comeback Player of the Year. If your expectations in mind as well for Brady, he passes for, 4,500 and 40 touchdowns. He's in the conversation for MVP. If they win the Super Bowl, now you got Arians in the conversation for Coach of the Year. So I do agree with him that, there's been many of years where the Patriots have had Brady at an all-time and, Belichick at an all-time and all these players that you can't give one team all the awards even if they deserve them. And I feel like, at the end of the season, we could be team that deserves most of the awards, but they'll give them out sparingly like they usually do.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're going to be the center of the universe as they've been in this postseason. And if they win games and you continue to win those primetime games and have a great record, you're exactly right. A lot of this organization is definitely going to have, that spotlight. And you're exactly right. Jason Light could earn GM of the year. Tom Brady could be possibly MVP. Of course, the projection is 16-1, but it's still 16-1. And you're exactly right. If Coach Arians can take this team to the Super Bowl in your home stadium, he's definitely going to be up for Coach of the Year, no matter if he has Tom Brady or Rob Gronkowski or not. It's a great, it's a great accomplishment at that point because it's never been done before, especially with what as Al has talked about tonight and the times that we're dealing with right now. Anything else, Josh?
Speaking of the times we're right now, you brought up those ridiculous numbers. The football and NFL could be losing, per month, per game, per year if there is no, football with fans in the stadium. I read something today that, I believe it was Jerry Jones or, someone in the committee of the football branch brought up putting more ads on the field, more ads on the sidelines if there's no fans, more even, maybe even Peter Florio said ads on the helmets and jerseys and stuff like that, just to recoup that money. And that it's something football hasn't done, but it was done 100 years ago when they first started. It'd be the normal, just like it is with NASCAR and Major League Soccer. And we're at a point where we're so desperate for sports back that are we going to get that upset over ads that we can have all 16 games played, playoffs played, and then after that it just becomes a normal thing. You're not going to get rid of that money once you've already done it. So it's kind of like a slippery slope there. If there are no fans, how do they recoup that money? Ads on jerseys, ads in the stands everywhere. Does that happen? And then does that become the new norm? Just wanted to, input on that. How do you feel about ads on jerseys and ads on helmets and ads on sidelines and maybe even on the field like hockey has?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, look, if it helps them have more money and put in, I kind of think of, I don't know if you ever see Major League 2, but the owner's losing money at that point. I think it's Dorn, and he starts putting all ads all over the left field and the right field wall, whatever it takes to sell at that point. I thought it was pretty funny as some of the ads there. If you're looking for a good proctologist, you could look out in right field. But whatever it takes for them to gain that money back and make sure that the NFL is going to continue to run in some normal capacity, I have no problem with it. At the end of the day, as we know here, guys, the NFL makes their money off of TV. And if you showing broadcast, whether you have fans or not, with all the money you're going to lose, you're still going to gain that money back with the TV rights. Anything else, Josh?
Well, yeah, let me just say one thing, Peter.
Okay.
Here's what's going to happen.
Here.
Here's what's going to happen.
There
will be.
Sorry, go ahead.
There will be. You will see gambling become a bigger part of the telecast every week than you've ever seen it before. That is an avenue where pro football owners have been, looking to see and wanting to see and waiting to see what they can do. And we will have opportunities of fans to be watching this game and have an app that says, okay, on, 3rd and 5, you're going to bet whether it's a pass or it's a run, and the NFL is going to get a major cut of that on all this gambling. We're going to see that come to the forefront. And that's going to be a way that'll make up for lack of beer sales, that'll make up for, lack of hot dogs and parking and all that stuff. And that's why you're not seeing the NFL exactly panic right now, because they know that they can make money in other ways that they haven't even tried before. And you're going to see gambling become a major part of how we watch football games from here on out.
Well, okay, we'll go out to the phone lines here. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Josh. I got cut off.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. You just have to listen because the problem is that you can't hear him. He can hear you, but you can't hear him. So if you want to listen to his response, you're going to have to hang up and listen. We'll figure that situation out. But anything else, Josh?
Just want to touch on the 47 sacks that you brought up from last year, and Donovan Smith and everything like that. I think just bringing in Brady, bringing in Gronk, bringing in Wirfs, bringing in Vaughn. Brady's good for himself. 10 sacks, cut that off right away. 5 maybe for throwaways, 5 for poise. Gronk another 5 chipping in. Wirfs another 5. Vaughn another 2. So right there, it's already cutting the sack total almost half. We went going from 47 to 25. And if those players can have the impact that their head can have and, could have, just with Brady's quick release and his pocket poise and his ability to throw the ball away and not make a bad decision and know when that pass rush is closing in and just throw the ball to the ground or throw it out of bounds and just get rid of the ball. I feel like that's about 10 sacks alone from what Amos, might have had. Then you put on, Wirfs as that right tackle coming in. If he can pan out the way we all hope and think he can, that could be another 5 sacks run right there. Gronk tipping off the side, whether it's on Donovan Smith's side or Tristan Wirfs' side, just his presence as a blocker, which is so, I don't want to say it's underrated, but it's not mentioned enough. Everyone knows what he can do as a receiver. They've seen the tape against Buffalo and him dragging 3 defenders to the goal line. But his ability to block has been and as a dual threat receiver, some of the league hasn't seen since Mark Bavaro. His blocking ability alone, to cut down another just all in the 5 steps. And then I mentioned Vaughn last night and his pass blocking protection, just on the low end, call it 2 sacks, and then you're at 25 sacks. And if he can allow 25 sacks for the year, that's not bad. It's not terrible, and it should be something that the Bucs can manage with.
All right.
Going forward with the season.
All right. Good stuff, Josh. Thanks a lot. And once again, welcome to the Bucs Report family. Appreciate you. All right.
Good luck, guys.
All right, buddy. Open phone line 727-266-5851. 727-266-5851. He mentions cutting it down from 47 to 25. Do you think that's possible in 2020 for the Bucs?
Well, it's not just about the sacks. Again, we addressed this earlier. You know, Tom Brady's considered to be the greatest of all time, not because, you know, he takes fewer sacks, but how many times did we watch Jameis Winston last year and in the last 5 years and say, he doesn't know when to get rid of the football? Tom Brady knows when to get rid of the football. So just from knowing how to get rid of the football, the Bucs offensive line is going to be improved.
All right, let's go back out to the phone lines. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
It's me, Gabe again.
Hey, how you doing, bud?
I'm fantastic. You?
I'm great, buddy. I'm great. This is Gabe, the 17-year-old sports fan here, starting early. I love it. Out of Oklahoma, right?
Yes. Hello, Alex.
Well, that's
Hello.
It's not Alex. It's Al. But go ahead. Go ahead, Gabe.
Well, I screwed up majorly.
That's all right, buddy. That's all right. I'm just gonna give you hell. Go ahead.
All right. So, I actually have a question for him, if you don't mind me asking him.
Well, if you ask the question, you're gonna have to get off the air and listen because he's not able. You're not able to hear it. So go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll get you off of here. And then if you want to call back, you can later. Okay.
All right. Al, my question is, because I talked to him about this last night. If Ryan Fitzpatrick would have stuck around last year, what do you think might have happened? He says that he would have went back to Fitztragic. I think I'm split between either him going good or being bad again. But what do you think would have happened?
All right, good stuff, Gabe. We'll hang up there. Go ahead. What do you think, Al?
Well, let's remember the reason why Bruce Arians was brought here to begin with, and that was to get the most out of Jameis Winston. And he needed to see, knowing that, you know, after the fifth-year option, that his contract was going to be up, and he needed to, you know, the Bucs needed to see exactly what they really had in Jameis Winston. So it was obvious they didn't have a real backup quarterback. I think that when you consider how badly Jameis was playing early in the season, that if Ryan Fitzpatrick had still been on the team, he probably would have gone to Fitzpatrick at least for a game or two, or at least for a half, or at least for part of this, you know, a short time. But again, the question would still come back with, you know, what do you have in Jameis Winston? And at the end of the season, you have to see whether or not he's worth a second contract. And so they would have to look at that and make a decision from there. I think they would have played Fitzpatrick. It would not have been for the rest of the season. They would have let Jameis kind of sit, chill, learn, and then they would have brought him back to see exactly what they have.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
Hey, it's Will Mann from Wisconsin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. You got a question for Al, or you got a statement? What do you got?
Well, I got two things here, and I actually got in a debate with my buddy about this. I said I believe in my heart of hearts that, and this is a statement, and if Al wants to debate with this later on, he can. But I got a question for him after this.
Okay.
In my heart of hearts, I believe that Jameis Winston will finish his career in Tampa Bay. I believe it because I believe there's something there. You and I both are Jameis Winston fans, and I will go down fighting, kicking, and screaming as a Winston fan. I don't care. But my question I have is, if this is all in, going for it all right now, and it doesn't work, what is the plan for next year? Because we don't really have a plan B if the Tom Brady thing doesn't pan out, or what if Tom Brady gets hurt? God forbid. But what is the plan B?
All right. Well,
do we have, you know?
All right. Well, I'll let you go ahead. I'll get you off the phone here, let you listen, because Al can't. If he decides that if he wants to answer the question, he will. You won't be able to hear it. So let me get you out of here on that. That's his question. I mean, what if it doesn't work out? We're talking about if it works out with Tom Brady. What if it doesn't work out? My thing is this to everybody saying, you have 2 years. It's not like this team is over the hill. Are they all in right now to win a Super Bowl? Absolutely. They want to get to the playoffs. They want to win the Super Bowl in their own backyard or in the next 2 years. If it doesn't necessarily work out, that salary comes off the boards. You, of course, have to draft a quarterback. Blaine Gabbert most likely is not the answer. Ryan Griffin is not the answer. So, but it's not like this team is over the hill, and because Brady leaves it, they're just going to go down. It's not like that, right?
Here's what I don't understand when people say, but what if it doesn't work out with Tom Brady? Okay, if it doesn't work out, are you any worse off than you were after Jameis Winston threw that pick against Atlanta and they lost and ended up 7-9?
Thank you.
If it doesn't work out, you had a 7-9 team that got a whole bunch of attention. You got a 7-9 team that got relevant all of a sudden to the point where you sold out every single game. So if it doesn't work out and you don't get and you end up getting a decent draft pick, okay, next year the top 2 quarterbacks are Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields of Ohio State. And not that many people out there are desperate for a quarterback right now, So you could end up 7-9 and have a top 10 pick and be able to get another really good quarterback. So, it's not like you're signing a guy for 5 years and, you're going all in. Well, you're going all in for 1 year, essentially, because we don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't even know what's going to happen next week right now in the world that we're in. So you're banking on, seeing something happen this year, and you're doing everything you can to make sure that the good stuff happens this year. And if Tom Brady gets hurt or it just doesn't work out, what have you really lost? You haven't lost a thing. This team was 7-9. It hasn't been to the playoffs since the Eisenhower administration. You haven't really lost anything, but you had a whole season with a packed stadium. And chances are, even if Brady doesn't have a good year, next year, you're still going to have a stadium where most games are sold out and he's playing quarterback. So you're relevant for the first time in forever. Everyone's talking about you. Everyone's going to want to know how the Bucs did every single week. And that's certainly better than what you've ever had here since their Super Bowl year. So I don't see, what are you losing if Brady doesn't work out? I just don't get it.
Yeah, Will Mann's a big-time Jameis Winston fan, and he contends that eventually Jameis Winston will be the starting quarterback. I tell you what, let's get back to that in a moment. Go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the Evolution. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Rick in Atlanta.
Hey, Rick, how you doing? You got a question for Al or a statement? What do you got?
Yes, I do. I got a question for Al, and I can mute so I can I'll be able to hear his response.
Okay.
So here's my question. Something that I don't think other people are mentioning much or not talking about much, and I think it's one of the biggest differences of the year. And maybe I'm crazy. I'm absolutely not educated like you guys, but to me, the other team's offenses, like we're not going to see the same New Orleans Saints. We're not going to see the same Atlanta Falcons. We're not going to see the same kind of opponent. They're going to want to keep our offense off the field. So they're going to play entirely differently. They're not going to try to score quickly. They're going to try to ball control. I think that's going to make a huge, huge difference in the way this season plays out. And that, no, Brady's not going to be throwing for 5,000 yards. He's not going to have to. And to me, the other teams, our opponents are going to radically change how they play against us. And I think that's just way overlooked Yeah, I will go ahead and hang up and listen to Al. But I mean, am I crazy thinking that?
What do you think, Al? Is he crazy thinking that the production may not necessarily be duplicated like Winston, but it may not have to be because he won't turn over the ball so much, and in turn not put the defense in those bad situations with field position?
Well, that's obvious, but I also think he mentioned that, opposing teams are going to just try to ball control and that kind of stuff against his defense. Well, the problem with that against the Bucs defense, remember, they were one of the best teams in the league in defending the run a year ago, and Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea are major reasons for that. They really didn't allow any running back to go crazy on them. And so I'm sure that's going to be the case. I'm sure they're planning for that to be the case. And remember, and I can't remember the schedule off the top of my head, but, they play Drew Brees in week number 1, and then they don't see a big-time quarterback until the Packers almost at the midway point of the season, and
Right.
You see Aaron Rodgers. So this defense is going to be taking on some offenses that are not exactly the Kansas City Chiefs. They won't see the Chiefs until later until late in the season. I think it's December. So, I don't see that many shootouts that the Bucs are going to be in early in the season. It's going to be an opportunity to where this defense, and again, the reason this Buccaneer defense, 2 reasons why this Buccaneer defense was so tough at the end of the year. Number 1, they stopped the run all year long. Number 2, they come from places on blitzes that no one else comes from. And it's so hard to prepare for this Bucs defense week after week after week. And especially for these teams that are just going to play them once, you got to prepare for stuff that you don't have to prepare for with any other defense. So that's what makes them effective. And that's why they were effective later in the season, even with teams that they had played against the first time around. So this Bucs defense, as long as the guys in the back are playing the way that they're capable of playing, they're going to be that same type of defense that'll give opposing offenses fits. You're not going to be able to play ball control against this team because they stop the run so well.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If you want to get on the phone lines, you have a question for Al, we're going to give him another couple minutes here, and then we're going to get him out of here because he's been on for 2 hours. But if you have a question, 727-266-5851. It's 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with the Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. In fact, I'm going to call this number here because they called before. You never see sports talk shows do this, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do this, see if I can get his phone number here. Let's see. Maybe not. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Let's see if we can call him up, and then we will go from there. So stand by. Hold on. Oh, I don't know if I can do it or not here. Hold on a sec. Well, we're just gonna skip it. If you want to call back, definitely call back 727-266-5851. If you want to talk Bucs expectations, some of the things we talked about, the Gary Myers story where McDaniels supposedly hates Brady, Brady supposedly hates McDaniels. Brady says, that's nonsense. Stop with that nonsense. Do better reporting. Levante David's comments on Jim Rome today, how they were hunters and now they are the hunted. I thought that was really funny. So yeah. And then if you have some concerns, do you want to see the NFL come back with no fans? Do you want to see the NFL delay the season? What do you think of the whole landscape of sports right now? What do you think of the NBA possibly coming back? Major League Baseball for 82 games. I know you're a big time baseball fan and we really don't talk a lot of baseball on this show. But an 82-game season, do you think that could be adopted in the future by Major League Baseball because the season is so long?
No, because baseball is a creature of habit in that baseball's everything about baseball is about stats and about the stats of the past and how they stack up now and how you compare and all that stuff. And, 154 games is one thing, from 162. But 82 games, I just don't see that. And you can do it for one season and then go from there. I think baseball would be better with fewer games. But, again, you've got all these guys that have negotiated contracts, big time contracts, and Harper and Philly. Do you think he's going to want to take a prorated rate of 82 games as opposed to 162? Because they ain't paying him $35 million to just play 82 games. So I don't see baseball ever being able to go back to 82 games from 162 and do that year after year. But I do think they may be able to cut it down to 154 or maybe 152 or something like that. That might happen. But the players aren't going to want, they want to play fewer games, but they want to be paid for the 162. And the owners at this point, they're not going to do that.
All right, let's get you out of here on that. Any final thoughts on what we talked about tonight, or any final thoughts in general on the sports web?
Well, it's just going to be, this is what, May 12th?
Yes. I can't get here. I can't get here. And it feels like it's been forever. Does it not, Al? I mean, you had the draft, but it just seemed like free agency has been forever. The whole sports landscape seems forever. It seems like it's just going so slow. And I know there's a lot of football fans, especially Bucs fans, that want to see this season start as soon as possible.
Well, just think about how things have changed for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and for sports in general and for our world in general. If you go back to February 12th, okay, go back to February 12th, look at the way it was then and look where we are now. Okay, that's the difference it can be between, July 12th or August 12th and what it could be like. We're going to go through a major roller coaster ride. But I will say this, is that the National Football League is America's premier sports business for a reason. And you look at they were highly criticized for the fact that they continued to have their draft at a point when, there was nothing. No one was doing anything. And the National Football League was smart enough to know nobody's doing anything. People do their fantasy drafts over the phone. We can do a 7-round draft on the internet and over the phone and still make it work. And it probably turned out to be, at the end of the year, one of the highest rated television programs, of the year. And the NFL was brilliant by understanding, and they've always been able to do this. They put their brand first, foremost, up front. And they're planning on playing in mid-September. And they will do whatever needs to be done for that to happen, for them to play in mid-September. Maybe without fans, maybe without preseason games, maybe without mini camps and OTAs, maybe only a month-long preseason. Bottom line, they'll make it work. And anything we say right now, May 12th, is just conjecture on my part, on Peter's part, on your part, on Ben Cornett's part, and Johnny Dean, and you go right down the line. Your opinion is every bit as good as Roger Goodell's because no one knows what's going to happen. But the NFL is smart, and the NFL is where it is for a reason. And they've looked at all the scenarios. There's nothing that will happen that they have not looked at. And they're ready for anything and everything. And they are determined to go September 13th or soon.
All right, good stuff from the Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. Also writes some articles here on Bucs Report. Check them out. 40 years. I know you don't like it, but I got to keep on saying it because it is your intro. 40 years of sports broadcasting experience. WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight, as always, on Tuesday nights on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. All right, buddy?
All right, Peter. I always love it.
I always love it too, man. See you next Tuesday. There you go. Mr. Al Keck was in the building. Great job. We'll go out to the webheads here, read your comments, take some phone calls if you want to. If not, we'll wrap it up for the night here on the sports web. Join the 64,000 following we have here on Facebook, nearly 65,000. And once again, What a tremendous night last night, Webheads. Over 3,000 views in 2 hours. It just doesn't happen like that on Monday night, but it does here on this platform. Bucks Report will continue to put out the content that makes you come back. And yes, this has become a nightly thing. Tomorrow night, we'll have the legend himself, Mr. Leo Haggerty, former coach, scout, and now media member of Night Sports Productions, It's Sports Mag. He'll be on with us. Alex Fleming of Fantasy and Flavors. We'll get our draft analyst, Mr. Nick Citro, in here, and maybe a special guest, and of course, your phone calls. Let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It is me, Gabe, again.
What's going on, Gabe? Did you get your answer from Al?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What
Yes,
else is
I
on
did.
your mind? Okay.
So, in my mind, I really love doing these hypothetical situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what ifs. And I'm going to move on from the Fitzpatrick because I got my answers from both you and Al.
Okay.
And now it's going to go to the craziness that Bill O'Brien likes to do. I'm thinking, what if we make a trade that will somehow get J.J. Watt over here?
Yeah, I get with the whole hypothetical thing and the dream team scenario, but the problem is you got to pay these guys, and the Bucks don't necessarily have a lot of money at this point. In fact, they only have enough money to sign their draft picks, and you get with the J.J. Watt. First and foremost, Watt has to agree to the trade. There's no guarantee. He may like Houston. It certainly seems like it. Would he relish the opportunity to be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady and Gronkowski and all these weapons? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, a J.J. Watt is a top-tier player in the NFL, and you're going to have to pay the guy, and there's not a lot of money to go around. And just keep this in mind, Gabe. Not only do you not have a lot of money, but you're going to have to devote a lot of that money next year to a Chris Godwin extension, possibly Levante David, and if Gronk comes back, you're going to have to sign him to top-tier money. So the Bucs are going to have to make some big-time decisions here in the next couple years. So a J.J. Watt doesn't seem like a situation that would definitely work at this juncture.
All right. It's just that these things are fun to think about. Even though they can't possibly happen, they are very, very fun to think about.
Absolutely, especially on Madden. Now, if you want to do it on Madden, do it up, my friend. I do the same thing. We could do the Madden thing all day long. But when it comes to the NFL right now, I mean, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the closest thing to a Madden team at this point. It doesn't necessarily happen in the NFL because you have the salary cap constraints, and you also have to have players that are willing to want to come here. And, you know, not necessarily everybody is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan. Not everybody wants to come to the Tampa Bay area, even though it's a team on the rise at this point, and because they have so many expectations this year. So we'll see how it all works out, but I don't see that hypothetical situation working its way out. Anything else, Gabe?
Yes, there's I want to go to that gigantic debate concerning O.J. Howard versus Cameron Brate.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, everybody's saying that Brate's the better. Brate's the one you should actually go for.
Okay. Well,
in my personal opinion, I think Brate actually is the guy to go for because he's the more reliable pass catcher, and he's a much better blocker than O.J. Howard.
I think that's an astute. I think they're not great blockers. I think OJ gets the edge on the blocking, but as far as production, Brate has been more productive lately than OJ Howard. And look, the NFL is a not for long league. If you don't produce, then of course they're looking at it, and you know, the limelight is going to be on Howard this year. After the Bucs picked up that fifth-year option, he's going to have to come out and produce, but he's going to have every opportunity to do that, a great opportunity to work with a Tom Brady in this offense. And not only that, you know, people are talking about possibly a third wide receiving role, having a mismatch nightmare where you don't necessarily have to be the guy that's looked upon. That now falls on Gronk's shoulders.
Like, I mean, I think that O.J. Howard actually make a good wide receiver number 3 if we decide to use him like that, because he's very fast, and in the right moment, he can actually pose a really good downfield threat if he's wide open.
Well, if he's wide open, you can get that separation, but remember, you have to have more than being really fast. You have to run correct routes, because if you don't, Brady is definitely going to get up in your ear. Anything else, Gabe?
Yes. I have 3 players that I think that if we win the Super Bowl, I think I got 3 players to where I think that they really do deserve it.
Okay, go ahead.
Levante David, first of all.
All right.
The man's been severely underrated throughout his entire career.
Agree.
I mean, he's made a lot of tackles. He's had he led the league in sacks for a couple weeks, from what I remember a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he's very grossly underrated. I
Well,
mean, I'm surprised that he's not getting a bunch of attention.
Yeah, I wouldn't say sacks, but he definitely leads in a lot of categories when it comes to tackles and sacks and interceptions and fumble recoveries, especially fumble recoveries. In that time, with comparing him to a Luke Kuechly or a Barry Wagner, he definitely is on par. The difference is David has not been a part of a lot of winning teams with the Bucs. Those other participants, that would be Kuechly, of course, the Carolina Panthers, and Barry Wagner of the Seahawks. They have been a part of those franchises where they've been consistent playoff contenders. All right.
Yep. And number 2 would be Mike Evans.
Okay.
He's been very successful ever since we drafted him. Consecutive 1,000-yard seasons throughout his career.
Okay.
And I just think that he needs some to top it off. You know, that Super Bowl ring will really show that he actually is the best receiver in the NFL right now.
Well,
not
there's
Michael Thomas with his 5-foot slant route.
Well, and look, they posted that today on Twitter. 20-yard routes. Mike Thomas is definitely not on that, that scale at that point. He's doing slant routes, outs, and stuff like that. That's the product of the offense. He still is a good receiver. Is Mike Evans better? In my opinion, he is. The problem is it's the same thing with David. He hasn't played for a lot of winning franchises, winning teams in his career, but he's going to get the opportunity once Tom Brady, and a lot of people feel like his production may tail off. Actually, it may get better because if you look at the comparison between Evans and Moss, and the reason why you compare those two is because they're the only receivers to have 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. You look at what Brady did with Moss in his tenure, maybe able to do that with Evans here in Tampa. Just saying.
All right. And number 3, and I got clowned on this for saying it whenever the question was asked to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually Cameron Brate for my third one.
Well, that's all right.
For the reason I got clowned on it severely.
Well, why are they?
My reasoning.
Okay.
My reasoning for it was for a few reasons. One, he deserves both a spot on the roster and a Super Bowl ring. I know that the NFL is a business at the end of the day, but if anybody deserves a roster spot, it's him. He's worked his way up from being an undrafted free agent. He beat 5 other tight ends a few years ago to get the number 2 job behind O.J. Howard. And ever since then, he's been producing, touchdown, 20-yard gain, etc. So I think he really deserves it.
Well, that's certainly a good point. Hey, here's an undrafted free agent, a hidden gem that Jason Light picked up in the process, and he's played well. He's had his moments, though. Last year, big-time catch he could have made in the Atlanta game, couldn't do it. He's got to get more consistent ever since he's gotten that contract extension. Yeah, he's kind of tailed off just a little bit, but you're exactly right from what he's gone through and being on this team and most likely being the most productive tight end. Now you have Gronk, and I think he's been better than O.J. Howard. So I don't know why you're being clowned for that. I can definitely see your point. Thanks a lot, Gabe, for calling the Sports Web. All right, boss?
All right, one more thing?
Yes.
Guys, I told you this last night. Call and talk to him. He's much better to talk to on the phone. Much better.
All right, Gabe. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you. All right, boss?
All right.
All right, take his advice. The guy knows what he's talking about. Even though he's 17, he knows what he's talking about. I'm much better to talk to on the phone, but I will make the exception if you are a webhead here. I'll read your text messages, but the phone line is open 727-266-5851. It's 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. All right, let's go back out to the webheads. Donovan Smith will be better with Gronk chipping off the line of scrimmage. Checking in now. What's going on, Deshaun? Misador, Chicago is still locked down, has yet to begin to open. I mean, that's the crazy situation. You know, there's some cities that are open, and there's some cities that are not open yet. California is extending their stay at home. Arizona is being lax with it. Being in the Bay Area, they've opened up the beaches. They've opened up some of the bars around here and some of the restaurants, not the bars. I don't know if you saw the other day with the gym people. I never thought I was going to say this, but the gym protest where people were actually squatting and doing push-ups on the sidewalk in downtown Clearwater because they want the gyms open. So that hasn't been open yet, but Florida is starting to open some things up, and you have to practice the social distancing. And I'm not sure how this whole situation works out for sports in general. I really don't. You tell me, though. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Deshaun Tisdale calling from Georgia.
Hey, buddy. Hey, this is the first time you called the Sports Web. Thanks a lot for calling. What's on your mind tonight, boss?
Hey, just listening to some of the callers, and I've called in. Spoke to you a couple of times. I'm normally speaking with Blake and stuff like that. I just want to weigh in a little bit.
Sure.
I'm thinking right now, where the team is at and where we're going. I definitely agree with Al as far as we're at a no-lose situation. We didn't know what we're going to have with Winston this year. I do like Winston. I wish him all the best. But I feel like the coaching staff and the GM is only going to be here as long as Tom Brady's going to be here.
Sure.
So we were going to start over again regardless. I don't see BA going any more than 2 years coaching. I'd be surprised. And depending on how these first years go for him, really decides on whether Jason Light will still remain, and it also decides on whether the Glazers will be even happy to take a recommendation of a Brian Leftwich as the next head coach or something, or anyone else on the staff for that, Todd Bowles or whomever. I think Al said, I think one of the main things right now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that our defense has been undervalued, which is going to be a nice sleeper type of appeal for us. Kind of like your white Mustang there is going to be a nice little sleeper.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks to Amco Transmissions for fixing that transmission because there was a problem with it. It wouldn't go forward. But yes, now it's definitely not sleeper because that thing is roaring like a beast. But thank you for mentioning that. Hopefully it can get me to point A and B really fast.
No problem. And I think that's what it is. I think this defense right now, we were looking for a veteran. A lot of the draft shows Nick Citro and a lot of the, Johnny Dean and other people, we were all talking about, hey, we may need to bring in a veteran, but I think we might have hit a home run with Winfield in that secondary. And really offensively, I was never worried about Tampa offensively. I feel like we really do have a plethora of weapons to use. Brady's done a lot more with less. So to bring him down here, anything that Jameis Winston had was a plus for Brady. So I really just feel like our defense, the young corners, our top three corners on our team, and Sean Murphy, Bunting, Davis, and Dean, they all got tremendously better last year. They got a lot of experience under their belt, and you're going to take bumps and bruises when that happens. Now, we'll find out what's happening with one of the safety positions. I definitely feel like Winfield has one of those safety positions kind of locked down and cemented right now. The other one is up for grabs. My main concern with this defense, which I really think is going to be scary championship Super Bowl Buccaneer defense based on the pieces. We have very mirror image pieces to that defense. What we did lack was a safety. And actually, I feel we have better corners, overall corners, just in their overall play than we did on the Super Bowl year, just as individual players.
Wow. Wait, hold on now. Let me go ahead. Let me paint this picture now. You're saying that the Bucs have better corners with Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy Bunting, and Carlton Davis over a Rondé Barber, Brian Kelly, and I believe a Dwight Smith at the time. Was he the third guy?
So it was Smith. Now remember, we had Kelly. All those from an overall, they were undersized. They
Okay.
worked better in the cover two in that Tampa 2 defense. In this in this particular defense, Sean Murphy Bunting, Jamel Dean, and Davis, they all can play press. They can press really well. They can run. They all have length. And even Sean Murphy Bunting being the smaller out of those three corners, just position and good feel, he feels great. When we take a Rondé Barber, Kelly, and Smith, pretty much all undersized, Barber just was phenomenal. But if you being a Bucs fan as you are, you remember it was a question mark whether he was even a good one of the twins, and he was going to be gone. And then all of a sudden, the defense started to click for him, and he started to be in the right place at the right time, and he made plays. He definitely deserves his jacket, but there was a point when we were looking at Rondé Barber in his young career where I was thinking he would not have been back again.
That's a good point. I mean, there were a couple years there where, a lot of people felt like he was going to be cut. He wasn't playing well. And then finally he got comfortable. And that's the interesting thing about this league, right? Not all players develop at the same time. And you go back to last year where Jamel Dean gets absolutely roasted and toasted in Seattle. I believe it was by DK Metcalf. Any receiver Seattle had, Jamel Dean was responsible. That was probably the best experience for that young corner to experience, because once he had that, then after that, it's all well and good. Then you basically, you know what you did wrong. You learn from it, and you can see once Vernon Hargreaves was let go on this team, and once they got a consistent pass rush, you started to see the talent of why Dean was drafted. I believe in the third round, highest 40 time, question marks about, his injury history with his knees, but everything is there. Tall guy. He looks the part.
Physicality.
Right.
He's got everything.
Right.
He has everything to fit the bill. And
right.
I feel like all those corners, for two outside stud corners, when we start looking at defenses, not of yesteryear, but of today's style and brand of defenses that play against today's offenses, you really can only kind of look at that Seattle defense and say, hey, that was kind of more the pioneer for the new style defenses. And what do you have? Nice, big, physical corners on the outside, a great slot or nickel corner, and then you got safeties like Earl Thomas and Chandler that can really just either come down and lay the boom, and then they can cover ground.
Sure.
And with Winfield, he's a cover ground guy, hands down. He definitely will come down and get in the box. They kind of, I noticed the Golden Gophers were using him a little bit as I watched a lot of film on him. They were using him. They spy him. They'll blitz him. He does a lot of stuff. So you got a team full of just athletes. And look at our linebacker core is going to be a lot better. I'm very interested in where we are at, Pete, with depth.
Yep.
We don't have depth. Do you remember there was a guy I think we got him from the Buckeyes last year. I want to say it was Buckner or whatever, defensive tackle. Something happened to him. I think he got a PED suspension. I was wondering if he was back this year.
Terry Beckner.
Rotational backup.
Yeah, I don't know about
Beckner?
Terry. Beckner is a 7th round pick. I have not heard a lot about Mr. Beckner at all, but they definitely are going to have to look at that situation with what they have behind Sue, because he's getting up there. You have a Vita Vea. Of course, they addressed it in the 6th round this year with Khalil Davis out of Nebraska. I believe it's 6th round. I think I got to go ahead.
Yeah, I think he was 6th round.
6th round.
I want to say,
right.
I'm looking at him, looking at his film, and looking at Nacho. Nacho has the NFL experience.
Sure.
I think he's probably a better raw talent than Nacho, with a little bit more speed, which he gives me flashes of a John McCoy. Not comparing him to John McCoy, but he does give you flashes of John McCoy but not the demeanor, but just like his get off.
The get off, right? Right.
But he does, when you watch him with like a Nick Citro or something like that, when you go through the full tape and not just the highlight, he has some tendencies to take off. Hopefully that will get, when you get on a roster and a team, when you have a winning mentality, There are no taking off plays. And you notice the big difference with this team when the mentality of a Vernon Hargraves, once he was gone, the entire secondary was willing to do more.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to come in, stay late, and it showed up on the field. So,
yeah, well,
I mean, if we say,
right,
hey, Vita Vea, he's playing with Sue, we thought, I was with you. We were talking about this when we got Sue. We said, hey, he's a hired gun, he's a henchman. But guess what? Players that are playing next to him, they're doing well. They're doing numbers.
Right. I mean, and there's some leadership factor. A lot of people didn't want to admit to that when Sue got signed by the Bucs. Well, he's not going to bring nothing. He's a dirty player. Oh, wait a minute. First and foremost, he plays hard. He got that whole thing about 5-6 years ago. He hasn't been that player. Does he?
Two plays, and they may be dirty plays. I agree, they're probably dirty plays, but he's did it 2 plays, and guess what? What do we knock Gerald McCoy about? Being too nice.
Right. I mean, what do you want? You want a nice guy, or you want a guy that's going to go and make plays? And I know you noticed this last year when you had to have a play like a game-changing play. Sue made it. Sue made it in the Rams game. Sue made it in the Falcon game. He showed up. I thought he showed up more than Gerald McCoy did in his whole career. Sorry. When it came down to making game-changing plays, Sue was on the spot last year, and he's a big part, Deshaun, of the reason why this Bucs team was number one versus the run last year. Of course, I just think it's fit, too. He fits the 3-4 better than a McCoy.
He fits, and I think that's one of the reasons why he said Todd Bowles was one of the reasons why he came here.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one of the reasons why he was willing to negotiate the salary the little bit that he did negotiate it,
right,
and come back. I think we're just going to be hands down with Devin White. I think he's going to be a much better linebacker this year. He showed you that he was just hands down a phenomenal athlete with just running people down. He's going to get his hand on more balls this year. The defense is going to click for him. I'm not sure where we are with depth at the linebacker position. Yes, we have Minter, but he's kind of like a retread, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if we have a young linebacker, true young linebacker that can step in. Beckwith, I think we're just being, a great team and keeping him on the roster, and maybe even Evans as well.
Right.
Justin Evans with their injuries, and I get it. I'm kind of fine with that for one season, but then it's a business at some point. So we kind of probably have to cut bait with those guys. And then one last thing, I'm looking for that rotation that Anthony Nelson, is it Anthony Nelson?
Yeah.
Anthony Nelson.
Right.
He got injured last year. I'm thinking that we can rotate with offensive and defensive lines from a front perspective. I think Anthony Nelson will be able to play some in. He's clearly the replacement for Nassib. You remember I called him before. I said, hey, he's the replacement for Nassib, and just a cheaper. We already own him from a right perspective. And there's going to be some rotation there. We'll get the young guy in, get some rotation across that front. That will be enough to keep our front fresh, barring injury from a rotational standpoint. But there's definitely going to be drop-off there. Hopefully Nelson shows something different this year. On the offensive side of the line, I'm just a little concerned. Once again, I get it. Smith's going to do what Smith does. Maybe we'll put Brunk over there to cover him up. I think Tristan Wirfs going to be a day one starter. He's going to step in and do what we expect him to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that we could get even more progression out of Kappa because he played phenomenal last year and really a tough guy. And if we get what we need to get out of him, my question, and I haven't heard anyone talk about this, Pete, and I'll get off and listen to what you have to say about it. No one's talked about what will it be, what type of communication, what type of match and sync. We were very concerned about Jensen and Winston. How is it going to be with Jensen and Brady? How is that matchup of wits and what we're seeing from the defense and coverages and blocking schemes? How's that really going to match up? Hey, great talking to you. I'll get up and listen to your answer. Go Bucs.
All right, man. Good stuff. Deshaun, thanks a lot for calling the Evolution of Sports Talk Television open phone line. Let me answer that question, unravel that. Anthony Nelson, to me, expect big things out of him. 4th-round pick out of Iowa. when he was able to play, especially during that first Carolina game. You could definitely see the potential there. A lot like Ryan Nassib. Question is, you can't make it out of the tub. Okay? Got to stay healthy. Can't stay healthy, won't make the team. So he's got to stay healthy, and I think the Bucs are kind of banking on that. That's the reason why you draft in the first place. You lose a free agent, much like what we talked about with the Patriots. They lose a free agent, you draft well, you put him in there, he's going to be good. So that's what they're anticipating, that Nelson is going to be the guy to replace a Nassib. Now, talking about the offensive line, the communication aspect, I feel good about this just because of the response when Brady came in. He wanted to meet all his teammates. He wanted all their phone numbers just because of what's going on off the field with COVID-19. I would definitely believe that Tom Brady has done his homework. He's talked to every player that he can. It's not illegal. You can virtually talk to anybody now. I mean, they can get a whole offensive line in a Zoom chat and talk to the quarterback. And of course, they're going to do it. So I don't feel like there's going to be any communication trouble. The one thing that you're concerned about with missing time from training camp and the whole aspect of repetition is the chemistry aspect with his wide receivers. And you talked about it last year with Chris Godwin not necessarily running great routes, Mike Evans giving up on some plays. Tom Brady will not tolerate that. I don't care who you are, how many yards you have receiving, he will get up in your ass if you don't do your job. And that is the most exciting aspect about Tom Brady coming here. Not the 6 Super Bowls, not the 9 playoff appearances, the accountability factor. It works both ways, ladies and gentlemen. Vernon Hargreaves was a cancer to that locker room. He was a cancer to that cornerback room and secondary room. Tom Brady is the complete opposite. He will elevate everybody's game, whether they like it or not. 727-266-5851 and 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Let's go back out to the web heads again. Open phone line 727-266-5851. All right, I have a take on the 47 sacks. We talked about that. Look, if you have 25 sacks to 47, you're doing your job. But if you remember the Patriots way, and you go back a couple years ago when Brady won the most boring Super Bowl of all time versus the LA Rams 13-3, what did that offensive line do? When Trent Brown moved on after that year, what were they famous for? Keeping him clean. No sacks in the postseason. That's how you win football games. Talk about all the weapons you want to on the outside. Fine. Filler. Okay? You build within the lines. The offensive line, the defensive line. If you can keep Brady clean, and I think that's the biggest question mark with this offensive line, whether you have Tristan Wirfs and Joe Haig, you have to step up your game if you're the offensive line. And if they do that, I definitely think there's some good things coming for the Bucs in 2020. Once again, open phone line 727-266-5851, 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Think we will have a season this year. Hopefully, Timmy, we do. Peter, you got some static. I don't know what that was all about. Daryl Floyd says, who cares? Was me saying that to him for saying about the Saints beat the Bucs in 2001. Let me say how the Raiders coach was stolen in 2002. Just saying, drop it, Daryl. We all know that you're somewhat of a Raiders fan. Timmy, yeah, possibly with no fans till probably playoffs. Al Keck, what a legend he is. Awesome tonight. He killed it. Let's see here. Misador, the MLB rollout will impact the NFL in a huge way. Their success will accelerate the NFL process. Exactly. You know, all the talk with the NBA coming back, I get it. They want to come back. Superstars are uniting together. Let's come back. Well, it's all well and good to say that, but there's also complications. So if that works out and Major League Baseball can have their season, then that's what the NFL is looking towards. The NFL has reacted in the way that you should. The other leagues are behind. That's why the NFL is king. And I think there's also a response to this, to which you find out the reason why NFL is king, because really nobody cares about the NBA not playing their games right now. Nobody cares about Major League Baseball not playing their games right now. Unfortunately, nobody really cares about hockey not playing their games right now. But you definitely care about the NFL playing their season. So they're going to do everything they can to prepare for whatever happens. And if that means going with a delay until mid-October, a contingency plan, they're going to do it. They're not going to be caught off guard. You know, you can be fair about it. The NBA didn't know it was going to happen. It happened, and they did their best. The other leagues didn't know it was going to happen. The NFL has some time. It's May 12th. You know, it's not like the NFL is going to start in a month or two. I wish it would, but it's not. So they're going to have time to prepare for whatever happens. Misador says, Darryl Floyd, Saints won versus the Bucks week 1 in 2002. The season the Bucks won the Super Bowl. It's correct, 26-20. I remember it all so well. Ben says, I'd rather take my chances with the NBA giving us a blueprint on how things go. Major League Baseball is fighting over pay cuts right now. And I get it. But the reason why they're fighting over it is because they signed an agreement with the owners. So, yes, the optics of the situation don't look good, but I signed a deal with the owners in March, and now you want to tear that up. I mean, this is the owners being the owners. I mean, and this is all across sports. The owners are always going to make the most money. And the players are looking at it like, hey, look, you signed a deal. Let's go with that. And then you hear, Major League Baseball maybe putting in a salary cap and all. This is not the time to do some of that stuff. The owners definitely know what they're doing. I feel for the players because Al's right. They can't win. The optics of the situation don't look good because you have so many people out of work. Ben Cornett, exactly. The NBA has already played something like 77% of their season, so Major League Baseball litigations will be huge to watch. Which player drafted do you think will have the largest impact this upcoming season? Oh, wow. I mean, the easy response is Tristan Wirfs, right? Not necessarily always the best response. I think you want me to think about this a little bit. Antoine Winfield, I like him. 7 interceptions coming out of Minnesota. The DNA is there. He's a ball hawk. He feels a need. You just feel like he's got it. You can't put your finger on what the it is. It's a combination of things. Can make plays. He has a DNA. He has the intelligence. He played at a winning program. He was a part of that college program in Minnesota who did squat before he got there. And then once he got there, then they turn it around. Tyler Johnson could have a big-time impact, a 5th-round wide receiver. Why? Look back into history. 3rd wide receivers in the offense, they work out pretty well. You double on Evans, you double on Godwin, you try to bracket Rob Gronkowski. Who's open? Tyler Johnson. Hello. I mean, there's could be various guys that could have it. Keyshawn Vaughn. That's a tough question. It's right. Like Al said, it's all conjecture, right? We don't know unless they put it on the field. All these players have potential to make some big time cases. A Tristan Wirfs, a Antoine Winfield. Who could make the biggest impact? I mean, I think it goes to Tristan Wirfs, right? Offensive tackle, you hope. And then followed by Keyshawn Vaughn because he's a running back and he has the great opportunity to unseed Ronald Jones. Now, I'm not giving up on Ronald Jones. He was a 2nd-round pick. But the Bucs have put him on notice. You got to improve your game in all facets of it. You got to become that pass blocker. You got to pick up the pass protection. You got to catch the ball consistently. You've got to take care of the ball. You've got to have vision. So bringing a young guy that's a lot like James White, which is one of our writers last night who joined this, said he's a lot like James White. Could be Alvin Kamara. You know what I think about comparisons. They're asinine, but we do it here in sports. If he's anything like those comparisons, the Bucs did good. 727-266-5851. It's 266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. I agree with them. Top 10 teams in the NBA should go on. Both Indianapolis and Chicago are still in lockdown. Talked about that. Deion Sanders just spiked the ball in Pete's face. Oh, that wasn't good. Latasha Rose, hello from Houston. Hello. Antoine Winfield will be your general in the secondary this season by week 3. People forget about Mike Edwards. He was a high draft pick, was he not? You think he has some say in this safety conversation? Justin Evans, a second-round pick just a couple years ago, showed flashes of brilliance when he got on the field, actually intercepted Tom Brady. Question is, can he stay healthy? Hasn't been able to. Do you think they look to him? That depth situation, Jordan Whitehead, Dakota Dixon, they'd like a lot of those safety players. So it should be one of those battles that you need to pay attention to. You really do. Bruce Arians should get the GM of the year over Jason Light, Ben Cornett, or Brady. Me says play-by-play gambling like the AAF. Me, Sador, correct. I mean, many people don't really understand how big the Gronk signing is. Gronk will make Smith better. He also already has chemistry with Brady, so that will be huge early on. Big-time signing. Surprise signing. I mean, where did you hear that from? I mean, first he's a 24/7 WrestleMania. I didn't like the hosting at all. I just didn't like WrestleMania at all. But him hosting it, yeah. But now he's interested in being a tight end. Okay, wants to come back with Brady. Makes sense. Great opportunity to win a ring. There you go. You never know, right? All right. Whatever happened, Saleh Toyak. I have no idea. He's infatuated with that Toyak, that yak yardage, isn't he, for wide receivers? I wonder what he thinks of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. Gabe is losing his sports web virginity right now. Congrats, young man. Do we have a true backup now? Blaine Gabbert knows the offense. Not the greatest thing. We'll see. Ryan Griffin, 2 passes. Question mark. People are sending me hate mail. I don't know why, Joey. All over the world right now. I don't know why they're doing that, Joey, but you definitely don't have any hate here on the Evolution. Well, man, no chance JW3 comes back. Not a chance. If Blaine Gabbert is your true backup, then I guess so, but I would much rather have Jameis over him. But that situation was never going to work out, guys. I know what everybody's thinking. Why wouldn't Winston come back? He feels like he's going to be a starter. Even though he's not, he felt like he had the grand opportunity to be a starter. I mean, put yourself in his shoes. Do you really want to come back and back up Tom Brady? Could you do that? Could you walk into that locker room, humble yourself after being a starter? Come on. You know you couldn't. You couldn't. Even though most likely it would be the best situation, right? He knows the offense. Most likely he'll get a chance to start again, but he went on, moved on. He's the Saint now. Eric Scott, Gabbert, laugh out loud. Oh, sign Aaron Rodgers. That's been talked about. Maybe Deshaun Watson in 3 years. Who knows? Could be 2 years. I don't see Watson re-upping. All right, welcome to the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Rick in Atlanta one more time. I'm sorry to bother you twice in the night.
Hey, buddy, you're never bothering me. You always have the access here on the Evolution. It's a fan show where a fan gets the opportunity to talk and make a couple phone calls. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a quick question. When are we liable, do you think? I know you probably don't know either, but when are we liable to see Brady in a Bucs jersey or Gronk or the rookies? When are they going to be able to do that?
That's a great question. I don't know. I know a lot of people would like to see that. I mean, you could see the Photoshop all day long. You just had to get through phase 1 first, and that comes down to what the NFL has said. Local communities and governors coming down and basically saying in so many words, the stay-at-home order is over with. We're at a situation where we're good enough. We're using social distancing. I don't know how that works out, but whenever it does, I definitely think you're going to hear, more about, guys getting in uniforms and going out to training camps and stuff like that. But right now,
I mean, they let whoever the 3 guys get the uniform for the pictures for the website. I mean, it just seems, I don't know. I mean, I spent 30 years as a photographer. It's not like there's like you can't keep with social distancing. Seems like something we ought to be able to do.
I
But
mean,
anyway,
you
I
have to
appreciate it.
social distance, don't you, in order to take a picture? You can't take a picture up close. I mean, I guess you could, but it doesn't look good. I mean, you got to take a picture. You got to stay 6 feet back. I guess that's the
Kind of my point. You got a helmet on. You got. I mean, it's not like they're not already pretty covered. I mean,
right.
They're at a distance. There's you don't have to be on top of each other to do this.
Right.
They don't need makeup.
Well,
so,
the situation is, Rick, that these facilities haven't been cleared to be safe or open yet. So, I mean, and that's the whole thing that nobody really knows about. When are these facilities going to be
open? Yeah, they did the 3 guys for the uniform pictures already, though.
Yeah, well, I have no idea, buddy. No
idea. I don't know. All right, thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Rick. Thanks a lot from Atlanta. Thanks a lot for using your second call here on the Evolution. Open phone line 727-266-5851. 727-266-5851. Once again, we'll have the legend of South, Mr. Leo Haggerty, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions at 9 o'clock, I believe, tomorrow night. Leading us off, we'll have Alex Swimming and then Nick Citro and maybe a special guest. We'll see. And, of course, your phone calls. Always love the phone calls. The conversation is so underrated these days. I love the conversation. It's always good to conversate. And then also talk to you webheads here on the texting line. Okay, so Will Mann says he loves Tampa Bay. Another over-the-hill quarterback. Will Mann, wishful thinking on your part. Will says, I'm okay with this. Will is a big-time Winston fan, no doubt. Brody lost Winston. That's what we lost. Brady has already worked. This is all about growing the fan base. 5 primetime games, the fans will be coming out of the woodwork. I don't know, Ben Cornett. Josh says Tom and Bruce could win it all and decide to walk away, pass the torch to Byron and Rookie, win or sign a vet. You never know. All this in a year. See what the future holds. Sit back, relax, and see what happens. Misador, if they're allowed at the stadium this season, laugh out loud. The 1 year they sell out season tickets, this pandemic happens. Peter is going to call Al's number. Ben Cornett, true, but remember how big the fan base got in the mid-90s through probably 2008. Peter, what's the number? Thanks a lot, Deshaun, for calling in. Misador, fans will definitely be back with the restrictions. It may have to wait a while. That is the big-time story, right? When is it going to be safe? You listen to the doctor, Fauci, talk to Peter King on Monday. Doesn't sound too promising, does it? I mean, you got to be realistic. 4 players get it, you got a problem. Starts to spread on the team, you got a big-time problem. I can't imagine. And then there's players out there who say they're not susceptible to it because everybody's susceptible to it. Everybody. So you just have to do the proper things. Wash your hands, social distance. Crazy. 727-266-5851. 727-266-5851. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Giving you something to think about. Let's see here. Greg Cole says, in the live of Winston goes on to have a great career, but it just wasn't going to be here. What does that say about the Bucs? Well, the Bucs were in the situation to get in the position to get a Tom Brady. They felt like they had to take that opportunity. I get it. Problem is we need valid testing. And sitting saying, hi there, Jimmy James, football without fans just will not work. It's like peanut butter without jelly. Just ain't the same. It's not the same, but you can't get away with eating a peanut butter sandwich. If you do eat a peanut butter sandwich by itself, you got to drink some milk. You do. Don't make the mistake like I did by eating a peanut butter sandwich without jelly and not having any milk. You get stuck in your teeth and you can't talk for a while. Just saying. Jimmy James, actually, lots of people eat just peanut butter sandwiches. Ben Cornett, yeah, without jelly, it just ain't the same, though. It isn't. Ozzy in Sarasota in the house. Thanks a lot, Ozzy, the sports junkie. Appreciate you. Ben says, Jimmy James, I understand, but as long as there's football, people will watch. They will. The other leagues in the spring have shown that. Even though it wasn't the greatest football, 20,000 fans a game in the stands. People love football. They do. I got NFL Network, and people are still watching that along with watching me. We're all watching football at all times. It's ingrained in us. It's Americana, baby. It's American pie. America's pastime is not baseball. Well, it is in the past. It's football. Football is America's game, and they have to do everything they can to not only make sure their players are healthy, but make sure this situation is going to be good for everybody. And money is definitely a part of it. Well, we've seen that tonight with those statistics. Amazing. Just amazing numbers. Billions and billions of dollars lost without fans. Fans make the sport. They do. I'm confident the fans will be there to the games. Leo is the man. Leo Haggerty is the man. We'll have him on tomorrow night. Christopher says, I can't remember McCoy making any game-changing plans. Any game-changing plays. Can you? I can't. Yeah, I get in debates all the time with Blake Anthony at Sports Talk 49. Yeah, he's not a big-time Sioux fan. I'm not having it. The impact of Sioux will be felt not only like it was last year, but this year. Where is the impact? Not only on this defense becoming the number one team against the rush, but the development of Vita Vea. I still say that the reason why the Bucs picked up Sioux is because they felt like he was a better fit. Look at William Golston and how he played. Do you think there's any accident or any reason? Any coincidence? The coincidence is bringing in veteran leadership. Whatever you want to say about Ndamukong Suh, he brings it. He's got the leadership. He's going to show him the tricks. And Todd Bowles is going to demand it. And this defense will get better in the second year. I truly believe that. I do. And I don't think that's the optimist in me talking. I think that is legit. That's not BS. We don't bring that here on the Sports Web. Join the 64,000 following we have here on Facebook. Again, like and follow us here on Facebook, also YouTube, and of course, Twitter. Love it. Gabe, call the man already, guys. Absolutely. What's the take on Keyshawn Vaughn? Will he take that third down running back position? May take not only the third down back, he may be the starting back. I mean, he's the guy that's going to challenge Ronald Jones. I believe that. I do. Someone said that the virus is around back in January or later back. Could have. Who knows at this point, right? We don't know where the hell this thing came from. We don't know what to do with it. You don't even have a cure for it. You don't have a vaccine for it. And I get it. Everybody wants to get back to normal. I want to go back to the gym. Cool. You want to get a virus? No, not me. I mean, you go there to work out, not get sick. I want to go out to a bar to have a good time, not to get into a fight, and certainly not to get sick. I want to go to a football game, enjoy myself. I don't want to be sick in a week. I mean, I guess it's worth it, right? Because it's football. But if you get sick long term and it could possibly kill you, and I think that's the perspective that we have to look at. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but people are dying from this. I'm just saying. You could have put priorities into perspective, don't you? Everybody wants to be normal again, everything to be normal, but it's going to take a little time. We'll see how it works out, though, that situation. It'll play out. Yes, Tyler Johnson in every simulation. He's a beast for us at third wide receiver. Good stuff. Andrew Adams, good too. He was signed. There you go. Am I late, Blackie? You're never late. Always here on the Sports Web. Definitely call in if you like. Yeah, still some time, though. We got 8 minutes till we get to 3 hours. We go 3 hours. We'll do it. Get some calls if I done for me. We got a situation going on. You have to keep your mind off of it, but you have to also be realistic about the situation. And that's what I try to bring here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. All right. Open phone line 727-266-5851, 727-266-5851. I just hope we start winning. I think everybody wants to win at this point. Uncle Dwayne, I just wanted to say to Al Keck, one of only real life today sportscaster legend, of more than 40 years. They always bring it with much knowledge and really great wisdom to be able to turn many of the callers of the show into something positive at the end. You always do it with so much professionalism and finesse. Just wanted to say to the young man, Gabe, that I appreciate his much enthusiasm and insight into the game of professional football, and you really remind me of my best friend, which I think and that's my uncle there. And a first-time viewer enjoying the show very much. Go Bucks. Frank, thanks a lot. Tell your friends. I'm glad that you guys like it. So with that being said, we only got about 6 minutes till 3 hours. I think I'm going to go ahead and end it unless you guys want to call in. If not, we'll end it here. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Continue to support the evolution of Sports Talk Television. What is this? Is it a TV show? Is it a radio show? It's both. It's interactive for your fans. It's not a podcast, but can be used as a podcast because it will be live on Bucks Report. Go and check it out. Bucks Report, a lot of great podcasts here being added almost every day here. Of course, great shows like Sports Talk 49 with Blake Anthony, Cup of Ray with Ray Kennedy, and of course here the evolution of Sports Talk Television. So with that being said, we will be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock here. Same time, same channel. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Have a great night. You're now in the Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense.
At Life's a Beach Realty, we're all about life on the beach. Stunning Panama City Beach and one of the most beautiful properties on the Gulf Coast, shores of Panama. Radiant, elegant, and spectacular. Steps away from white sugar sand. Every room overlooks the turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Come in for your tour today. Life's a Beach Realty is your gateway to shores of Panama, the shores, and a whole lot more.
Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
My dad had a heart attack at 56 years old. He passed away at 63, and his main problem was high cholesterol. That was the main problem. And I've thought about that. I'd try anything to lower my cholesterol, to stop the chances of having a heart attack.
When I retired, I really had to be conscious about what I put into my body. Interestingly, I was also told I should probably take a statin. And I've always resisted medication like that because it feels unnatural to me. And so when I heard about this product that can naturally lower my cholesterol, lower my risk of heart disease and other types of conditions that come from having high cholesterol, I jumped on it. Has a lot of fiber in this, so it keeps you regular. It makes you feel good. And actually, interesting, it tastes good. You know, sometimes you see these things and you wonder what it's going to taste like. This one actually tastes really good. In fact, my kids even like have.
Here's a sobering reminder. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death for men and women. No wonder staying heart healthy is so very important these days. And we're learning that a few healthy choices can help prevent heart disease. Enter the inventor of Gatorade, Dr. J. Robert Cade. No secret what Cade and Gatorade did for thirst and performance. And Dr. Cade's Cholesterade is so much more than a thirst quencher. Cholesterade is a refreshing, high-fiber natural drink that could dramatically lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of heart disease. In fact, Cholesterade has twice the fiber of any other product on the market today. Independent studies show that 2 daily servings of Cholesterade can stunningly lower bad cholesterol by up to 20%. Dr. Cade knew firsthand the troubles of high cholesterol and adverse side effects of cholesterol-lowering prescription medications, also known as statins. Dr. Cade knew that a daily increase in fiber could lower the levels of cholesterol, so Dr. Cade invented Cholesterade as much for himself as anybody. Cholesterade is a powder that is mixed with water or juice. Cholesterade is all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, and probiotic with natural flavors. Studies have shown lower cholesterol numbers without the use of prescription medication. Cholesterade helps all people looking to add fiber to their diet. Cholesterade, combined with a healthy diet and exercise, can help you get your cholesterol under control. Entertainer Rod Adams personally knows the benefits of Cholesterade.
Hey, my name is Ron Adams. You may know me as an entertainer from maybe one of my shows, like my eldest show. But I'm also a 55-year-old guy that needs to stay in shape. I realized that my cholesterol was getting way out of hand. I went to the doctor and he said, you need to do something. But there wasn't anything to do other than maybe get on a statin, which I already knew was dangerous. And then I found out about Cholesterade. Started taking it 3 times a day. 8 weeks later, my cholesterol dropped dramatically from over 300 to under 200. The good cholesterol went from 18 to 36. Cholesterade is what's keeping me healthy.
Independent studies have shown that Cholesterade users have seen their bad cholesterol drop by more than 21%. Triglycerides drop by some 50%. And good cholesterol improve by nearly 13%. Cholesterade supports digestive health. It has 3 great tasting flavors and has become the future in the fight for lowering bad cholesterol. You can find Cholesterade by ordering at www.cholesterade.com. You can find it on Amazon and at major retailers nationwide.